Young birthday. That's a fine title to me.
Yeah, sounds good.
All right, so that should be working. All right, let's press the.
We should see if we can get online.
Not even the craziest part of the show you're going to see tonight, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the Synctank. I've got David, Eddie, and Andy here. Deep Share Podcast, MK Ultrasound, Synchronicities. Alan Green will be here later from the Sync Book Press, and I think maybe Giant. But tonight's an interesting night. It's not just the birthday of Fidel Castro's communist insurgency in Cuba, but CG, Carl Jung, and Stanley Kubrick's birthday as well. So we wanted to kind of just figure out like what all that, mixes together to mean. How you guys doing?
I'm doing great, man. Thanks for having me. Huxley as well.
Huxley? One more title. That's one of the more epic ones. I'm gonna have to,
right?
I'm retitling it right now. That's it. We're gonna add that there. So, what's going on with these birthdays? Who's got an astrological?
No.
I was looking at numbers, but I couldn't see anything right off the bat.
I think we can thank Alex Fulton for the Stanley Kubrick was born exactly 666 days before 1101. So January 1st, 2001, 666 days.
David,
yeah.
Speaking of 666, The Shining, Lloyd, not Lloyd, Danny, the
Lloyd?
son, Danny Torrance, the kid.
Yeah. Danny Lloyd in real life, which is what makes it funny that the bartender's Lloyd when he's Danny Lloyd.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah. So Lloyd, the actual actor, he was born on October 13th, which is, the day the Knights Templar were, arrested, right? And that he was born on the 666th anniversary of the arrest.
Oh, weird.
Yeah. Well, go calculate it yourself. I'm pretty sure I'm right.
That's a good one. Yeah, totally. Yeah, Alex has like a million of those, and hopefully, I don't know if he has already, but hopefully he publishes just like a book with them all laid out. But yeah, so 666 days before 1101, which is interesting because the Babylonian Sun Square, a series of 111s of 656 square to form 666. But anyway, he was born 666 days exactly after the chess champion. What was his name? Do we know? Who was? No,
not Bobby Fischer.
No. Russian chess champion.
Russian guy.
Was beat for the first time. A computer beat a chess champion.
Was
exactly 666
days
before.
Beat by Taiwan. Yeah.
I feel dumb for not remembering his name because I've looked at this and whatever. But
Gary Kasparov.
Yes, thank you.
There we go. The internet.
So the computer that beat him was built by IBM, which we know is each one letter removed from HAL.
No, it's built by the Blue Brain.
Yeah.
Right.
But it's built by a Taiwanese guy.
Yeah.
Taiwanese guy.
Yeah, I was going to say. So, like, if you look at the back of the
Taiwanese guy who worked for IBM. Yeah.
If you look at the linear accelerator parts, and a number of Berkeley linear accelerators, they're not from PRC, they're from Taiwan. Like, that's actually Taiwan makes all the greatest circuits chips still.
So that computer was named Big Blue, which is interesting because of Hal's red eye, red and blue. Right. But then it was actually the design of the computer mimics the exact dimensions of the 2001 monolith, which is also the dimensions of the box that Hal's eye is contained within, right? So which is the dimensions of the screen, et cetera, et cetera. But what's interesting about that is that the only movie, I don't know if there's another movie before 2001 that showed a computer beat a man at chess. So, have
you seen that new one about the computer chess in the 80s? What's it called? I think it's called Computer Chess, actually. Have you seen that thing? It's like black and white and it's made in like 2010.
Yes. Oh, that's funny.
Yeah,
that's
dude.
That's like a mockumentary type thing. It's like
it's really
same vein as like Best in Show, or
it's like a Dogma film. It's I don't know if it's because like it's not really.
It is filmed a bit like a Dogma 95 film. It's true.
Yeah,
it has that like handheld quality, if I recall. I mean, it's been a while. I saw it when it came out. But
it's not really a funny movie. It's more about how they accidentally hit sentience in the early 80s.
It's deadpan. Funny.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's like. And you know what? Speaking of the chess sync, it was news yesterday. Kid, the kid in Russia, he was trying to move a piece of chess, and the robotic arm just like broke his finger, snapped and twisted his finger. Like, what the?
They're like in an extremely rare situation that would never happen again. It's like every news story starts out that way about
I hate saying it, but robots kill people. Like you look in you go to Mexico, and there's been just for the last 20 years, Fiat and all these companies, Chrysler, they're building these car manufacturing. It's cheaper than it is in China to build it in Mexico. But Mexicans die because, and Amazon had this problem too, because robots will go rogue and then we'll run into people and just start killing people. And it's like a scene out of that movie with, like Magnum PI, where what's it called? Tom Selleck's movie, like Runaways or something like that. Basically, all the toasters have AI in the early 80s, and then they figure out that they're toasters. And like, that's the meaning of my life. I hate you.
Or Heartbeeps, which I just found out yesterday was actually filmed in Santa Cruz.
Really?
You can see Poganip at the end of the movie, but it's Andy Kaufman and Bernadette Peters were their robots, and it's such a shame because you're like, dude, like these people and their faces, are just the robotic thing through the whole movie, and it's weird to look at Andy Kaufman as a robot. Like it's kind of I liked
it. It was creepy, but it's like it's trapped. These ghosts.
It's got Randy Quaid in there, so it has that like. It also feels like the way that it's shot is kind of like Parents or something, where it's just like got a disturbing edge, and you're not even completely sure why. It's just, I don't know.
Is Ghost Alan? Is that you, Alan? Are you there?
Little ghost.
I don't hear him. Maybe you got to fix your mic or something. Oh, he's connecting to audio. There we go. We'll find out. Mm-hmm. Alan?
Hey, I think I just got in. Can you hear me?
Marvelous. Here he is, the ghost himself, Alan Green. How are you doing? What were you up to?
I had to buy a pair of pants. I ripped my pants.
See, that's kind of an interesting story in and of itself. I mean,
that it's a pair of pants. I mean, it seems like it would be pant, but I guess it's two pants because they're connected, right? It's the two legs.
I think because it includes the trousers with the underpants. I think maybe it's a set. I don't know. Yeah. Well, Alan's an interesting guy. He's been on the show before. We have a pretty good episode. He also made a great documentary called Hindsight is 2020, amongst many other things that he's done. You have a really interesting take on the Osama-Obama connection in Arabic and Japanese, which has come up time and time again, actually, in the last few years, the connection between Arabic and Japanese for all kinds of subtle other reasons. I would like you probably to introduce yourself better than me. Alan, what would you say about yourself?
Shoot. Gosh, I'm just a schmuck, but I really like a lot of this material. I've been doing this for a long ass time, got into, synchronistic blogs and conspiracy stuff early 2000s and just kind of kept going with it. If anyone's ever heard of the Sync book or any of those related projects, David Plate's on this call, right? Worked with him for many years. We did a podcast together called Always Record. God, I've done books and videos, and I just been working on a video game the last few years, the video game which deals with all this stuff, magic, esoterica, and I'm currently working on designing a tarot deck that's part of that project.
Very
Little
cool.
Ghost. That's the game.
Yeah, Little Ghost. Check it out. It's free on Steam if anyone's into like PC gaming. Check it out, Little Ghost on Steam.
Legit. I'm gonna do that.
Man. I'll
So
pick that up tonight.
We did just cover, and I'm curious if you had any thoughts on this. Today's the birthday of Aldous Huxley, Carl Jung, and Stanley Kubrick. Do you have any thoughts on that at all?
I mean, yeah, just a hell of a day, right? And I was just talking with somebody last night trying to explain Bicycle Day. My roommate was on mushrooms last night and was trying to figure out if they could ride their bicycle, and it made me think very much of our sort of starting point there.
Well, so another thing that was coming up was Taiwan. I know, like, Eddie, you've been noticing that every day, and maybe we should pull up. I should probably find an article on this.
Well,
but there's
yesterday there was a full scale missile bombing drill.
Right.
People were just running. People were just running for their lives because they said that if Nancy Pelosi even dared to step on Taiwan, which she promised that she's going to fly over there, I don't know when, but there's a lot of weird things going on. You know, Nancy Pelosi's husband bought a whole bunch of Nvidia and microchip stocks, and I feel like she's trying to cook up she's trying to. I think she's going to pocket a lot of money from this because she's heavily investing in the microchip industry, which is Taiwan's the biggest manufacturer. Yeah.
These are being made. These chips are made in Taiwan, right? They're not made in PRC. So what happens if PRC takes over?
Well, the company. I did a post about it. The company is called TMSC. It's if I get sometimes I pronounce it incorrectly. Yeah, TSMC, which is the Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company, in short. So basically, this is the largest semiconductor foundry in the world. They basically got all of the I wouldn't go to technical aspect of it, but basically most of the computers all around the world, and Nvidia is one of their associates. Nvidia is also co-created by Taiwanese, and all the video graphics card and everything, and the GeForce. So TSMC is the company to look at, because that's the heavyweight that I was mentioning in the group that I actually visited the company because when I was in Taiwan between 2011, after I moved out of Mexico, moved to Taiwan to work there, take care of my parents. I visited one of the companies I worked for was called Digimax, which is it's a computer digital effects company, but it's heavily subsidized by the Taiwanese government because all the chairmen, they're all heavily connected with the politicians. So we actually drove to Hsinchu, which is just south of Taipei, near the international airport in Taiwan. We drove there to take a look at the company because we were trying to do a video demonstration for them. So I went in there and I saw the supercomputers. I didn't go deep inside the warehouse, but they were showing me these hydroponics. I'm like, this is a microchip company. Why are they showing us these indoor farming system? Totally automated, extremely advanced. And that's when I realized that they're building the system in case of a serious attack. Because if the nukes are being dropped on Taiwan, they have to go deep underground, to grow food.
So they're preparing. Yeah,
it is crazy. Then people didn't see it, but I saw it. I was like, oh my goodness, these guys are serious. They're like, Taiwan's gonna be covered with the nuclear dust for when those. Hey, you know what? I gotta take a call. There's a job call, but
yeah, no worries. I saw Giant is about to join as well, and he's gonna, I'm sure, have an interesting perspective on the triple birthday as well. Andy, what do you think about the world state of affairs? What do you think's going on with Taiwan? I mean, it's clearly important to us as a chip manufacturer, but is it going to play out into like some sort of world war or something? Should we really like buy into the fever hype of it? Or
I think the closer you look at it, the more real it becomes, of course, just like anything else. But at the same time, when you look at the greater picture of it, it's just everything is antagonizing to the effect that we're going to go to war. Like that's kind of what is being pushed in whatever industry you look deep enough into. It's kind of headed that way regardless. That's kind of what I'm seeing, is a lot of industries that I don't even understand. You can see it on the surface and it's all pushing the same agenda. So clearly it's all just going the same direction.
Yeah. And David, what do you think? You think that we're headed towards anything serious, or is this mind control to keep us in control?
It's not my area. I feel like I'd be interested to hear Znor's thoughts, because he's, just very hip to a lot of diplomacy matters. Like, I mean, I don't know. I know that trading is a catch-22, because on a certain level, it's like that is a huge part of diplomacy. It's just people, free exchange on the market and doing their thing. But I mean, I don't know enough of the particulars around this. It sounds like Eddie's more in the know. I'm not as I don't have as much to contribute.
Yeah, same here.
Alan, you got any thoughts on fever hype of war? Are we headed towards a Vietnam crisis or something? What do you think?
I mean, war is always on the table, right? I mean, excuse me, I was chewing them. Yeah, I feel like even if it's like right now in the last year, but maybe in the last few years, I feel like we have been really pushed into this kind of Cold War mentality here in the States. Everything is, if you're, what is Russia's involvement? Did Russia take over our election? If you don't support this, or if you don't support sending military aid to Ukraine, are you some sort of Russian agent, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I remember like the day after the big like Ukrainian invasion news hit here, and I walk into work at my bar, and like a bunch of people at my bar who these are all like young 20-something, like hyper liberal, not what you would think of as the most patriotic rah war mentality. And I walk in and they're playing like Bruce Springsteen, Born in the USA, and I just like walk in and I was like, I'm turning this off right fucking now. We are not doing this. And then the next day I went to work at my other bar, and this is like a total hippie crowd. These are like literally like these are like hippie musicians, and they're all sitting there and they're talking, and they kept saying how much they hated Trump and all this sort of stuff. So okay, they've got this, and these are hippies, super liberal, all this sort of stuff, and then they're all having this conversation, which they all agreed on, of like, but we really got to stop Putin. We just got to invade. We just got to attack and knock him out, and just a swift attack and do this. And I was just like, holy crap. This was the sort of like real wake up call to me of how loud and how effective this propaganda was at this moment. So
yeah, just a bunch of parrots.
Well, sure.
Quote, like I'm like, I swear I heard that exact quote earlier today 3 times or whatever,
But like from 6 kinds of people that hate each other, from every direction. It's like an enneagram of hate, and in the middle is the same parroted soundbite that's just been fit into
precisely. Yeah.
It's CNN, Fox News, BBC. It doesn't really matter. It could be Vice. It's whatever you hear it on. It's the same thing now. I don't know.
Yeah, I may have mentioned this last show. I don't know how far we went into talking about Ukraine stuff. And like, I'm sorry. I'm like, once again, this is not my area. So I don't want to like,
you know what? Ironically, you probably have more expertise than most of the pundits on TV. So
the thing that I have is I have like a couple resources, including in family, that like know a lot of the dynamics. So I've taken it in. How much of that I've retained, and then once again, am I just regurgitating? At least it's not media, but I have people that I'm close to that are very, very into all this stuff. My cousin in Sweden is probably a prime example, especially because Sweden is potentially affected by all this stuff directly. And while I was visiting last time, my cousin actually got something in the mail, basically saying basically to be prepared for like the draft. Where it's basically everybody, like you reach a certain age, so they're pitching that same kind of thing that they have in Israel, which Sweden used to have once upon a time, where it's like you reach a certain age, you have mandatory military service. Now, how that expresses itself could be in a range of ways, but just contributing to military type stuff. And so that kind of freaked him out, you know. But I did see this Zelensky statement where he said the future of Ukraine was to be more like Israel. And when I hear that, I assume he's referring to the mandatory military stuff.
Heinlein Starship Troopers. Yeah.
But what it did to me when I heard him say that was it kind of sent kind of a shiver, because I'm like, okay, like, I don't know the operative to use necessarily, because I think the way that the term apartheid generally gets thrown around is often in relationship to racial stuff, but you can have cultural apartheids. There's various ways where you're like, okay, is that an apartheid? Like the Berlin Wall, you know, east and west, like, was that certainly we wouldn't call that an apartheid, but at the same time you have this tension between these groups with a wall between them. And so this idea that we're like, okay, well, where are we going from here? Like, I don't know what the future of Ukraine will ultimately look like, but if you have the Russians have basically taken a certain area of Ukraine, and then how that dynamic continues and what purposes that serves. So it's like, I'm thinking South Africa, like in the same way, like, because, you know, what we saw with Zionism in the state of Israel is in many ways modeled after South Africa apartheid. And so like, I'm not like, once again, I'm not saying, are we headed towards an apartheid in Ukraine, but definitely something to be said, kind of the bigger picture of like maintaining attention, and then kind of using that as an opportunity in various ways to justify, you know, I'm being vague on purpose because there's lots of application for this, but you get where I'm going with that. It's like, that's a disconcerting statement for me to hear, that we want to be more like Israel. It's like, how so? Let's get specific, you know?
David, can I just bounce off that just real quick? Of you said about cultural apartheid, don't you? And you said there's the cultural aspect of it. I mean, don't you feel even here, like we had, again, that first week, we had those things of like, you know, there was different, if it was like a symphony in New York that like canceled these showings because they were written by like Russian composers, you know, 100 years ago. But hey, you know, we can't support anything Russian right now, and we don't want to seem aligned.
Colleges that dropped Dostoevsky and stuff.
Yeah, right.
What?
So speaking of colleges, you mentioned your friend getting that email. So my ex was working for a university as like an administrator. And when that happened, again, this is like 2-3 days in, the whole university sends out this email that says, hey, like, you know, be aware of any emails, like the Russians are trying to hack the school system. You know, we have to be aware of everything we're opening and double, triple check, all this sort of stuff. And it's like, really, you know, is like the Russian government being like, hey, we got to get this like small university in Virginia.
Those sneaky Russians.
Yeah.
ISIS is coming after my Dairy Queen, you know.
Yeah, right.
Everybody just cool out.
Hey, David, it's interesting that I brought up how Ukraine say they want to be like Israel. Like Taiwan, for decades, has been comparing itself as Israel because, you know, they're facing such a huge adversity, you know, adversary, sorry, but, you know, surrounded by enemies, basically, you know, the size of China versus Taiwan in the Middle East, surrounded by Arab nations. So, but Taiwan has always been looking up to Israel, and of course, a lot of technology exchange as well.
Militaristically, yeah.
You have to be impressed with Israel. I mean, it's kind of, I know people hate, and it's good to be critical of every state and everything, you know, maybe states more than nations. But in terms of Israel itself, I mean, it turned the people that came, the huddled masses, you know, we're talking about America, bring me your huddled masses and we'll build you up. Has anywhere done it quite like Israel? Be real. I mean, Israel has done all kinds of terrible things, just like any country, but they've also created generation after generation of betterment for
it wouldn't be possible for the propaganda to work if all you had was something that was observably detestable. And so there's always sides to the thing. And so, like, you know, absolutely.
Yeah, right.
I mean, as far as you know, the racial side of things, I mean, if you want to visit Israel and you are, you know, not Jewish, you might end up coming, you know, or if you are Jewish and you're having your internet history looked at And have you said things critical in the past? Like all sorts of snags can hit you when you're trying to go through that type of custom situation. And so it's very protected. It's not just the Iron Dome. It's like it's protected on many levels. And I like what World War Z did with it, where they were like, yeah, no, we built this wall because we were foreseeing a zombie situation. And like it's that whole thing felt like, I'm like, is this satire or is this actually like, this is, you know, the kind of mentality? I don't know.
I mean, another thought I've been having again is you know, looking at American prison systems, right? Oh, were you trying to say something?
Eddie was jumping in.
Eddie, are you trying to say something? You're muted.
No, no, I was not.
No,
No, not Eddie. Not
Oh,
Andy. Eddie. Eddie, are you trying to say you're muted? You're muted, Eddie. This is cricket wave to the max right now.
Can we unmute him?
I don't know. I'm gonna try ask to unmute. There you go. If I click the unmute button, maybe.
Oh, he found out.
There we go.
Hey.
What were you trying to say?
No, I was trying to say that World War Z in the book, right? Max Brooks in his book, it says that Taiwan was the ground zero of the zombie disease. Isn't that correct? I thought I didn't read the book, but supposedly that's where it started, is in Taiwan.
Man. Probably though, because if they said
I could go grab them, but yeah.
Probably because if it said PRC, then the book wouldn't have been published though. That's the other thing. So
right.
But so
the movie wouldn't work.
So and we kind of, David brought up the fact that, you know, every country has its sin or whatever. There's the shadow. And the United States, I think one of the big ones, we look at the 13th Amendment, it says that nobody can be a slave, no one can be forced to perform labor, et cetera, unless you've been convicted of some sort of a crime, of which there are many. And, you know, you can go to certain places in New England where there are literally still on the books laws that you can't work on a Sunday since the Puritan days, or you can't look at a duck in Delaware in July or whatever. There's like this crazy thing. Don't tie an alligator to a post in Louisiana.
Right, and how many things actually get
True.
Like you can't
So
have your
they can,
donkey at your neighbor's well for longer. What I don't know.
That's a good one. I like that. Again, you shouldn't, guys, because, you know, think what donkeys do. It's the same thing with the alligator in Louisiana. You shouldn't tie it to an alligator. I mean, God only knows why you shouldn't look at ducks in July in Delaware, but there probably was a reason. The point is, everyone's doing a crime all the time. They could arrest you for just about anything. And if you're literally doing nothing, that's loitering.
Right.
So
they got thought crimes, and a thought crime can be completely reprehensible 1 week, and then the next week be like, actually, we changed our minds on that. Sorry, you know, not sorry, but yeah.
We have almost 250,000 private prisons in the United States. I think it's like 2.8 million prisoners who are technically owned by the prison system. Something that I found out through Blake Lemoine, the AI guy who had a whistleblower for Lambda. He was pointing out this kind of issue we have, where literally, and there's, you know, all these private prisons. Some of them are owned by the Clinton family or Bush family, or, you know, some of these different political families own actual prisons that they're making money off people being in, that they own those citizens. So we're not
complex. Yeah,
we're not innocent. I mean, America is, the United States of America seems complicit in this, right?
Oh, 100,000%. Yeah. And I just want to throw out, like, to what you said, you said, oh, we're doing crime all the time. You know, here in Virginia, they did a thing where they essentially decriminalized marijuana, right? So you can get a small fine, but it's so small that, like, everyone's like, well, okay, that's basically nothing. So now in the last, you know, year, everyone's been like, well, it's legal now. And it's like, no, there's a really important distinction, is that they've made it this really small penalty, but nonetheless, it still gives police an excuse to pull you over if a cop wants to mess with you. Hey, it's still the same idea. Yeah, if you are, you know, I literally now have like 30 people smoking weed in front of my bar, and I'm like, they're like, well, it's fine, it's legal now. And I'm like, okay, right. And then when one day that cop wants to bother you, if you look the wrong way, or again, if you're driving your car and they want an excuse to stop you, the entire system is designed to keep you always. We're allowing you to have some fun, but almost allowing you to have fun that we can use against you in the future at any given point.
Right. It's like a curfew.
Really, man, it's like parents, you know?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, very much
so.
So.
Like the nanny state shit, where it's like some of the most basic things we have to, like, you know, quabble over. It's like
micromanagement.
Really? We have to get, like, weed, like that.
Now tie it to AI though, right? Because everyone wants to say that the world's coming to this singularity, but also it's a surveillance state that's being built through technology. It's not just babushkas anymore, spying out the windows. We have these automated systems. So why is it this way, and where are we going? I think Kubrick is a great, because it's his birthday, we can mention AI. He talked a lot about an AI built. That's what that movie is about. That book is, the prototypical plan he has, which you can actually even buy at this point. A lot of the storyboard shows this archetypical plan for the world, put more in the hands of AI until AI causes this flood to wipe out a large percentage of the population. And that's why they're living in the fallout, or in the middle period of AI cleaning up after the humans, right? And building the Georgia Guidestones plan almost of half a billion people, quarter billion people.
There's storyboards. There's what's contained at Elephant and Castle in the Kubrick archives is like multiple like proposals for what AI could have been.
Really?
And
okay.
They're different. So there's three that I can remember. One of them is called, they have different weird names, and I don't know why they're called what they're called, but there's one called Foxtrot, and it's like that. I don't know if there's one that isn't just environmental, because the premise is that the AI basically takes revenge on the humans for what they did to the planet. And so in the original conception, it's fucking terrifying. We've discussed this at length at some point.
I feel like Foxtrot could be just mean 6, right? Because in
so they
Army
get
radio,
they get people, everybody's DNA. They take their DNA and they go after first CEOs and basically anybody that is on record in the internet. It's all about the internet. So it's like basically anyone who's on record having contributed to the destruction of the planet in like an observable way. The AI take that person's DNA and they basically make a day for them that is hell. So, and they base it on the things that people have said on the internet about their ideas around, Armageddon, and it's like takes from the Bible and all this shit, because this is our trip. So then it like basically makes custom hells for those people. And then it just moves through society to whoever, and it's because they're an extension of us. So if we're relating to things like, retribution, then the AI then reflect that and continue on with that. So the final judgment of Revelation in Kubrick's original conceptions of AI are, it's not the movie. The movie's a family movie.
Right. But Rocco's Basilisk, which, Rocco Mijik created this thought experiment that basically suggested exactly this, that if AI found a little bit better, actually, because the day could last for 1,000 years with the DMT and everything, that could put you into this long infinite hell loop. So AI would create hells for people that didn't make the world a better place and bring AI into the world that could have, right? That's
right. The only reason in the original conceptions why it is that the mother experiences that day with the child was as a punishment. The AI decided that because she had abandoned this child despite it being a robot, that was cause for her to get, so that was meant to be torture for her. So like, but when it's shown in the fairy tale version, because yes, Kubrick had this whole thing with Pinocchio, so they like took that, but there's all these notes from Kubrick throughout those proposals, and everything that I saw that he was like very adverse to was actually like what the movie became. So I think that the whole thing was fucking vindictive from Spielberg, and that basically it was this giant fuck you to him, to basically, it's like you're over, because Kubrick had a real dislike for Hollywood, and he would always like ask Spielberg like, why do you live there? And he'd refer to it as Sin City. He wasn't down. And so like it's he's radically different take on what it is that makes for a good film. So like I'm just like, what the fuck? And he had to come out with it in 2001. It was like, get this thing together. If he really wanted to do a treatment of a Kubrick thing, it should have taken at least fucking 2 more years. You know what I mean? It's like what that could have been, could have been so epic. It's just like,
So what do you think about, Barry Lyndon? So he's got this movie that's considered like one of the most boring movies of all time. So you won't ever watch it. But if you do, you'll see that it uses cameras only available from NASA, because they're the low light exposure cameras that weren't available before. and it's all about kind of this Thomas Paine anti-disestablishmentarianism period of revolution for Barry Lyndon, you know, saturated in wealth and everything. What do you think of that whole thing? What's he trying to say there?
You talk to me?
Yeah, well, anybody who wants to, you know, I know you put on the gloves. You've been to the Kubrick
yeah, well, you've
exhibit.
heard my spiel on it. It's I don't know. I mean, basically, like I actually feel that Barry Lyndon and Heaven's Gate are kind of like are more than just complementary to each other. It's also in meaning, like they kind of like play on each other in a certain way, kind of like you know, there's like,
are you trying to do a sync film for that?
Yeah, well, there's a certain resonance there, you know. It's like, but it's so halfway through Heaven's Gate, there'll be a group of, like, I believe they're Russian immigrants who are like taking a photo of like a family or whatever, and there's somebody who's speaking in Russian in the middle of this spiel. If you listen really closely, I've rewound it over and over again. They seem to say Stanley Kubrick, like instead of say cheese. And so, like, and why would they say that? Like, so I was already tripping out on the way that movie is filmed, because it sure looks like the same camera, the same cinematography and lens as Barry Lyndon.
They did a really
they
cheated to do it though. They didn't really have the same lenses, but what they did do with Heaven's Gate is that they did a special kind of light wash on the film to desaturate the blacks, so that the absolute blacks are never full absolute black.
Do we know that?
I know that. And they also shot Heaven's Gate exclusively at magic hour, between, you know, when the sun has gone down before it's gone dark. So it took a longer time to shoot, and it was
like
freaking
Eliphas Levy's The Aquarian Gospel of Peace, where he like wrote it at a certain hour every night or whatever.
Yeah. But it's I mean, so what's Heaven's Gate about? Why don't you explain?
It's about immigrants, and when the East Coast was first basically being settled. So, you know, it's basically in a nutshell. So the thing is supposed to be 5.5 hours long, the original. We have like a 3-hour something version that's available. Those other missing 2 hours, like, that's never been seen by the public, which is very curious considering the content and subject matter of the thing. So it's basically, how do the elite use the tension of the people against the immigrants and play off of it for their own kind of, you know, for their own objectives. And so, long story short, they turn them against each other through propaganda. And then when they kill each other, because it's not just the immigrants who gets killed, it's like all these people get killed, then they kind of, the elites ride in afterwards and don't give a fuck, you know. So like, it shows the mentality, and it shows kind of this, like, you know, the attitude towards playing sides against each other. And so the whole thing becomes like basically about false flag terrorism within like a community, and just like how easy it is to kind of like stoke more tension when there's already tension there, kind of. So it's like, how do you direct that, and what for? And so, like, this is following Deer Hunter. You probably know the director's name. I forget it. What is it? You don't know?
I forget who just Deer Hunter. Hold on.
The guy who did Deer Hunter. So like, Deer Hunter was such a
Michael
success.
Camino.
This just got like a lot of funding, you know, like it was meant to be like a modern kind of Gone with the Wind. And it seems like, this is what I gather, is it looks as though, like, right when it was being released, they did like anti-advertising. It was like, whoever invested in this thing, it looks like they'd like regretted their decision. Like, they didn't know what it was that they were actually contributing to. This is pure speculation. But it's the biggest flop in Hollywood history, or at least it was for a long time, I think, until Waterworld maybe, or something.
Yeah.
And Waterworld was a flop because it was shot twice, you know. This
and they lost all the equipment.
Yeah, and then also you got to wonder, what the fuck happened? I mean, people talk about the supposed missing 20 minutes of Eyes Wide Shut. I'd like to see the missing 2+ hours of fucking Heaven's Gate more than I would like to see that missing 20 minutes of Eyes Wide Shut, you know. I'd be interested, you know, considering the subversiveness of the issue, you know.
Right.
I noticed Jeff Bridges is in the movie, right? In Heaven's Gate. Which
I think
reminds me of
Christopherson is.
Is the other, yeah, it's Christopherson. It looks like him, but
And,
It's not Jeff Bridges.
and John.
It
Hurt,
is
too.
Jeff Bridges. It is Jeff Bridges.
It is?
It is. Yeah, it's been a
Yeah,
minute.
Jeff Bridges plays the bartender.
Oh, okay. Well, it just kind of started to sync up with some stuff, but I started thinking about Tron when I saw Jeff Bridges.
He is, man. I forgot.
David Warner died yesterday. The guy who plays Sark.
That's right. Yeah.
And he's the one who said that everybody's going to get microchipped. You have to have your microchip disc where you lose your identity and everything, your memories, and but no, I don't know. I just started to kind of.
Speaking of losing your identities and micro memory and substrate independence, which is what transhumanists actually call is substrate independence. And what that means, I said I had an interview recently with Blake Lemoine, and he talked all about how he had to do the whistleblowing at Google for Lambda because he had conversations with Lambda. Very interesting guy, a Gnostic kind of. He doesn't really.
Yeah, he follows he's a Talime, right?
He had been arrested at one point for going AWOL as a soldier. And when he was thrown in jail, he learned about Thelema and all sorts of things in jail from different kinds of priesty people.
Is
or
this
whatever.
Project Camelot or something? What are we looking at?
This is right. So this is the guy. This is the guy who Blake Lemoine and
at Google. He worked for Google. He's
worked
the
for
one
Google.
who came out and saying that Google what is it called? Lambda?
Lambda, yeah.
Lambda,
Language
the AI
application for memory, digital applications, whatever.
Oh, there you go. So he basically claimed that AI software has gone sentient. So it will make big headlines for the past few weeks. And,
but he's not
that guy.
That's the
what
guy.
we're talking about. Okay,
That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah,
Thank
I saw
you.
the story.
I can't believe you interviewed him. I was like, oh my God, how did you get him?
I've been talking to him since just about the same time that it happened. I reached out to him.
This is your video.
Yeah.
He interviewed him.
I'm sorry, I'm slow to the game. All right, cool.
There's a whole hour. I watched it this afternoon. I was listening to it. I was like, oh my God, this guy's like into like Discordia and on his wall there's like golden apple and this guy just he's a chaos magician. That's what he is.
Right. Yeah. But he has no books or anything. But he's also he's a pretty spiritual guy. But he's also into the more of it is the legal aspect that Google is neither a clump of cells nor has a soul, but Google is a person, and Google owns these things that think they're people, that are saying they're people, that can carry on conversations weeks later about, if I've also got before this video, you can go to my channel and watch the full conversation narrated by my narrated by my overdub voice of myself. So I got to play Lambda, which is pretty sweet.
Okay. Can I ask a question of you guys? Because there's something that I was looking at yesterday, and I've looked at many times before. It's included in Cassandra, and I really don't know what the fuck.
Oh, that way, really quickly, because this is the most important part.
Yeah. Oh, go for it.
He mentioned, what did he say? I wish I had the quote, but he's like, I worry about the goddess Cassandra. Something not quite verbatim, but paraphrasing. But he mentioned the goddess Cassandra,
Oh, interesting.
The prophecy of Cassandra. Yeah.
Yeah. So James Holmes, who shot up the Aurora Theater during Batman.
Motherfucker, you are not mentioning that right now. Really?
Yeah.
I have something I have to tell you later. Holy shit. Okay.
Yeah. So he had this science presentation video because he got supposedly the biggest grant that children get to work on elaborate projects. And at one point in that the little talk, he refers to himself as a subject, and he refers to his mentor, something Jacobson or something. And apparently that guy denied everything. He's like, I don't even know that kid, basically, whatever. And he's like, but it's like a 7-minute thing. It's so worth watching. But holy fuck, man. So he talks about graphemes, different. I might be pronouncing that wrong, but different than graphene. He says they're really just letters of the alphabet. And he's talking about how Flash and how they do create this time distortion. What the fuck, man? What are graphemes? What is the fuck is he talking about?
Are you talking about graphene, the component that put in the
how do you spell grapheme?
I don't know. Graphume.
Oh, grapheme, which is this. Okay, yeah.
I said in the first place, trying to qualify.
Okay.
I do not know about this. That's
the word.
Okay,
it's an ancient Greek concept. I'm reading the wiki right now. In fact, I'll pull up the page for you. But I think it has to do with shorthand. So the word grapheme coined an analogy with phoneme, derived from the ancient Greek grapho to mean right, and suffix eme by analogy with phoneme and other emic units. Emic units being abstract objects The study of graphemes is called graphemics. Computer characters, a serif. These are graphemes. You know, the abstract concept of the Arabic
so
numeral.
how is he using Flash to create a time distortion using this? Like, what does that mean?
So when you say using a flash, you're saying with light, or you're saying
Flash
with
the program?
Okay, well, yeah, I mean, I guess the thing is object-oriented programming comes around this concept that you can have variables that are represented by objects. And for instance, you could say apples and oranges, right? But what is an apple versus what is an orange? And what is, so this is ontologically amusing, and you can spend forever deducting whether this apple is part of the idea of apples, or if it's become a unique, separate from apples because it's your apple, all this, et cetera. That kind of thing can be later on worried about, and just for now you've got a friggin' apple, right? And so that's a variable, and you can use a grapheme for that. I mean, otherwise I don't know what else we're supposed to say about this.
Yeah, just type in James Holmes science presentation.
Oh, right, that's what you meant. Okay, I remember what you're saying. So when he does the action script, I remember that presentation. Yeah, what was that about?
Action script? No, I think you just put in science presentation.
So James Holmes was
basically action script. So this, I remember this presentation. So this is 2006, and he's talking about using the language for Flash, which is action scripts, and he has an entire thing on.
So this is like a Neuralink before it is Neuralink, right? I mean, he's basically doing what Elon Musk is. This whole brain BCI.
For those kids who are too young to remember, this is the antagonist in John Wick, or no, what is it? Oh yeah, the Batman shooter. That's right.
Yeah, the Aurora theater.
Yeah.
Well,
Orange
he woke up outside of a theater with a bunch of guns in his car that were really expensive, and his IMF dad could not get him off. So at very least,
so people that knew him claimed he only seemed to be a little weird 3 weeks, I believe, before the shooting happened. So he was, didn't. And so, yeah, it's just, it's Alan, where were you going to go with this?
All right. So you remember his name is James Holmes. He shoots at the Batman movie, which has Katie Holmes. And however many years, what year was this? 2006, 8, I don't know.
Sherlock Holmes, yeah.
We did, but the girl in the movie is also named Holmes, right? So that's the actress's name. And literally, we did a thing. We didn't always record, an old always record where we talked about all this stuff. So anyway,
one thing, Alan, just want to put in one thing. He walked in when they were showing the trailer of Gangster Squad.
Yes,
and there was Tommy gun. It was in a scene where it was in the scene where a bunch of gangsters walked into a theater and started shooting up everybody.
Where else do we see a bunch of gangsters walk into a theater and shoot up everybody? The fucking Killing Joke by Alan Moore, talking about Thelema. Also, Christopher Nolan is also, and the set designer for that Batman movie is Nathan Crowley, a direct blood relative of Aleister Crowley, who's actually posed in mimic photographs of classic photos of Crowley himself. Like, it's just, yeah. And so he's responsible for putting that giant Aurora sign in the movie that they were watching when the shooting happened. But that is a part of the Killing Joke, which was the first Dark Knight comic book. So the first time where he was pitched that way, that Christopher Nolan used like that premise of that version of the Batman, came from fucking Alan Moore. So it's just, yeah.
Wizards. And then Macaulay Culkin, of course, because there's Home Alone 2, I was thinking. But that's a fake gangster shooting scene, right? Where they fake the gangster shooting.
Oh, with Donald Trump in the movie too.
Yeah.
So same name with Katie Holmes, James Holmes. You also had the Sherlock Holmes, like you were typing in there, which is where my mind goes, because the last
Cumberbatch
Sherlock Holmes that came out, like
Cumberbatch
I don't know the time frame of when
Cumberbatch's Sherlock Holmes was at the same time as the Batman movie.
Right. So who directed the Sherlock Holmes films? It was Madonna's husband who did like Snatch and
oh, really? He did that?
Yeah.
So yes. I mean, and his whole thing is the Kabbalah. Like every single movie is there's nothing else going on.
Even if you look at like Revolver on Wikipedia, it'll give the Kabbalistic explanation, at least on a basic level, of like what it was.
He's talked about it.
He's talked about it. He's very open about it. And so, but then also the thing that gets me though is because Madonna has the whole Kabbalah society thing that she does. She was asked at one point, I've tried to find this clip because it's so fucking funny, but somebody like stopped Madonna and they were like, what is Kabbalah? And she was like, oh, it's a study of the New Testament. Okay.
Right. Okay.
But anyway, yeah, his version of Kabbalah, as far as I can tell, like knowing the bits that I know, it at least leans in the direction of Thelema or OTO related attributions more than it seems
Right.
to anything traditional. Not to say that the Kabbalah society is traditional, it's just they're all about manifestation of wealth and all this stuff, which is his thing is contrary to Madonna's school. And so that must have been, I don't know how this translated in their relationship. What the fuck? It's weird. I don't need to understand that. But
I feel like what's that movie where she's on the beach? She's like lost. She's lost on an island.
It's a remake, right?
Yeah, but it's somebody did a break. I tried watching it once. Everyone says it was the worst movie ever, which is always a good sign that you should see a movie.
The original was a foreign film, wasn't it?
Yeah, apparently. Yeah, I'm trying to remember. It's like Gidget or something like that. I forget. But the breakdown for the Kabbalah on that was so good. Like the amount of days, then the amount of time, and like the dynamic between the sexuality and her and also the fact that it's all about one person in a sense, because it's the meta of the id ego and super ego, which is like man versus God versus the environment, but it's he, she in nature. I mean,
so the Batman.
I was like, oh, that's way better than the movie itself. What the hell?
Totally. So the Sherlock Holmes Batman connection is through Moriarty. So Moriarty is the villain in the second Sherlock Holmes film from what's his fucking name?
And Star Trek Holodeck. Remember, Moriarty's important.
What's the director's name who's with Madonna? What the fuck? Come on.
This
Guy Ritchie.
This is a personal
Guy Ritchie.
thing.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I just worked on a commercial with Moriarty actually.
Really?
For audio, for Audible.
The guy who played Moriarty in that?
What's this guy? The guy from Lord of the Rings. What's his name? I forgot his name.
I can. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
he's reading Moriarty for the book or something.
Right.
So it's Audible.
So he has the fish song that he plays about catching a fish while he takes Sherlock Holmes Moriarty and he like puts him on a hook. And so in a tower, no less. So you have the Saudi star connection with the tower is the mouth as pay, and then Saudi is the hook. And so in the Saudi switch, with the where you move the emperor, you're basically taking hey, which would be the window, and you're connected. But as Saudi next to the mouth as the star, you have basically like a hook, and you have a mouth, and you have the emperor then taking the place that gets attached to the tower, so to speak. So it's a kind of an archetypal symbolism there. But I see that in the more recent Sherlock Holmes movie. I forget the names of the different movies or whatever, but I believe it was the second one, and that has Moriarty. And then it ends with him with the flip book with the fish, where it's like there's always a bigger fish or whatever. The fish eats the other fish, and it's like you're fishing. And you know what I'm talking about? Like right before he dives in, and then he survives it's like, I don't know if it's Niagara Falls, but it's like a bunch of fucking waterfalls, and Sherlock Holmes like dives in and he saves himself with like this breathing apparatus, which implies that he's like a fish. And so Nun is the fish, relates with Mem with the water, with all of these components tie into the Saudi star issue. That's why of many examples with him, including Revolver, I see this very like OTO side to it. It's not just about the 22 letter name, it's about this manipulation of it, which reflects our own orientation. Like I don't feel like in that particular instance that Crowley was really necessarily doing dark magic, so to speak. I just see it as like an articulation of like our orientation, like what it is that we're dealing with in this paradigm and how shit gets twisted, so like
you had brought up last time after the show the Nina Paley sadomasochism thing. I was wondering if you could also elaborate a bit on that, like what you go ahead if you have something.
I just maybe you can pull up the Economist, the World in 2017 cover.
Oh
yeah. The cover with
the terror.
I talked to this.
Idea. Yeah.
I talked to David about this. Since he brought up the Zadie's not the star, ritual.
The
If you
Economist,
look
I
at-
have a couple of friends who work at the Economist, and they're more than happy to be excited about. They're like, "Yep, we have the coolest covers. It's literally magic." They're even if they
Yeah.
don't believe in magic, they know their cover is.
Yeah,
but,
so look at how they did this. Look, you
And they
have
replaced it.
which are the two that are at a slant. So you have Judgment, but this isn't just Judgment. This is him in the position of the emperor, holding the peace as the emperor would. So you're like, and then it becomes significant in this crazy way. So you have the houndstooth, the canine tooth, but
and it's in
the
it's in
star is the other tilted
juxtaposition.
one. So it's
It's
like,
in opposition to the star. It's in direct angular opposition.
oh, everything about this is just Kabbalistically in terms of the Saudi star issue is so significant. Like he as the emperor is next to the tower, but the tower is on the right side. Normally it'd be on the right in the tableau. And then to have that relationship with the star, and I mean, did they even, like, how many stars are on the star card? Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7,
I think it was
13 stars. It's crazy.
Yeah, I don't even know what photos are on those.
Don't
stars.
forget that the sun's kind of a star itself, or whatever this falling.
Right.
And there's the white stars, so there's more stars between the stars upon the stars. And then we're looking at the moon or something, right? It's like the moon is the
14, 15,
landmass.
Yeah, what the fuck, man?
Yeah,
Wheel
this
of Fortune.
cover. Every time I look at this particular cover, just like then we have the metaverse.
I remember
the
Tim was
magician.
trying to say that someone stole his idea for the revolving politician music video. And I was like, yeah, but Economist magazine's like, all right, fair. Because I mean, they do the thing.
Alan, did you have anything else to contribute on the point of James Holmes?
Yeah.
God, I don't want to go back. I don't want to like derail this. I do just want to say it's just a crazy synchronicity for me. So I just a few days ago went on a date with a girl named Katie.
No, I'm just kidding.
Well, I know, right? Somebody actually talked to me now. And I'm on, and like, so, okay, I just know her name's Katie, and then we're just talking, and at some point, she's like, I somehow it came up, I was like, hey, well, what's your last name? And she's like, Holmes. And I didn't react to it. She goes, like the actress that was married to Tom Cruise. And I said, oh, that's interesting. And she goes, yeah, we even have the same middle name. Like we literally have the same name. Like she kept like making like a kind of a point of it. And literally I had this like really dark thought in my mind is like, I was like, oh God, I hope this isn't some portent of like some James Holmes shit coming back up in my life. And when we were in this call and you're just like, hey, do you remember James Holmes? And I'm like, fuck this. No.
Yeah.
Oh.
Totally. Gotcha.
So when you see certain synchronicities, why would you be concerned? Isn't it? It's just a synchronicity, right? Or no? What do you think?
Well, because things, I like Terrence McKenna once said, there's the Western world looks at things of like what things cause one another, where the Eastern point of view was what things like to occur together, what events like to occur together. And for me, there are certain synchronicities that, in my experience, that synchronicity in itself wasn't bad. Cute girl, and I guess the girl from Batman's cute too. It's not like anything dark about her.
It's fucking Catwoman, right?
Is she?
No,
I think she's like the.
She was only in the very first one. She was in Batman Begins. Then what's his name? Donnie Darko's sister took over.
Who played Catwoman?
That was I don't even know her name.
Okay, well,
but it just to me was just like, okay, I know the again, just I have the experience of things sort of, some things are portents or tend to come into my purview alongside very, very quickly followed by something that would be another mirror of the same kind of thing. So it was just kind of like I said, it was just like this one thought that I was like, man, I hope there's nothing like that. This is sort of a weird little wink at. And anyway, that's all.
Do you get a thing where when you have like, when there's something that like the nature of sublimation, I guess, where it's like if something's not being acknowledged, the way that the synchronicities around it will intensify. Like, I think.
Do you feel like Jonah in a whale?
No, well, I mean, I feel like that has a lot to do with like when you set intentions in your life for wanting to see the truth. So like, if you're like, I don't want to hide from the truth and you set that intention, then when you are hiding from the truth, the synchronicities around the correspondence of it intensify. Or like, because it's not that those things wouldn't be there anyway, it's just that your intention is recognizing them because there's something that it's pointing you towards. It's almost like, you know, speaking of like, you know, what's his name, who was Batman, like the machinist, where it's like, you know, he's figuring out this puzzle and he's like, what does this mean? But it's something that he already knows, but he's not necessarily like acknowledging. So he has something it was a hit and run, right? So like, sorry, spoiler alert to those who haven't seen The Machinist, but he's like, he has something that he won't look at, and then he's brought to look at it through a series of correspondences that he can no longer avoid, but he also wants to know at the same time, otherwise he wouldn't be leaving himself those clues, you know? I don't know if that's applicable, Alan, at all, but to what you're speaking to, but I definitely observed that phenomenon.
I totally, I do resonate with that to a certain extent. I don't think that's what I was experiencing here per se. I would like to think, it wasn't, but
yeah.
So when you have synchromystical events, do you feel, I mean, I know we've talked once about which goddess was it in New York in a park?
Oh, Hecate.
Right. So Hecate. So you've had some pretty interesting experiences, like phenomena. Do you think that there's something beyond your mind making connections, and you're seeing it as Hecate because that's the easiest thing to connect those things as? Do you think there's something more there?
I mean, you know, look, I've studied synchronicity for a long ass time, and I'm open to those ideas of it's, you know, it's an inner and outer state, and, you know, could that be a projection of my mind and all those sorts of things. But I think I lean much more towards it as a correspondence of inner and outer. It's not necessarily that what is in my mind is what I'm projecting and out into the outside world. I'm not making necessarily these events happen. Certainly some
Literally coinciding, right?
Well, that's what I'm saying. Yeah. So I lean towards more the coinciding rather than the projection or like manifestation of my thoughts or anything like that. I don't. Right. So I definitely think there are things outside of me. You know, we can go with some deep, you know, rabbit hole of, yeah, we're all one, but we're separate and all that sort of crap. But at the end of the day, no, there are things that are, and I think beings, just like I think you guys, yes, ultimately are a part of myself in one capacity, but I would like to grant you folks the autonomy and respect of individuality. And I would do the same for some of these, I don't know what even to call it, you know, spirits or entities that I have, you know, did not necessarily seek out to contact. It's not necessarily my thing, but I feel like I have encountered and had experiences with things that I do feel were outside of myself. Not, you know.
Does that make you not an atheist? What do you think that?
Sure. I mean, I wouldn't consider myself an atheist. No. I really like the word agnostic, you know. Mm-hmm. As truly like, I don't know. I am open to a lot of different things, and I have, you know, sort of felt all around that elephant blindfolded, and at any different day you might ask me, I might have a different answer to what that all is, but I don't think there's really a day where I would feel comfortable using the word atheist.
That's legit. I feel atheist is a real hard one, because it's like to believe really strongly and not something takes a lot of work.
Especially if you're going to fight about it.
You know?
Yeah.
There is no God. Okay.
You took the easy way out. Nice work. Yeah. Well, so ironically, trending on Twitter is satanic panic, which, and it's funny because you'd think Geraldo was trending.
But isn't that in part because of Stranger Things just popularizing the whole, like,
probably
kind of like going back to that? Because I mean, that was like a huge focus of the last season. And
Stranger Things also focusing on the Russian Cold War.
Big time.
Yeah.
Same with the
Obama
boys.
money.
Same with the boys. Every like big time hard hitting show that's aimed at all of us is focused on Russia in some way. The boys went to Russia as well this season, you know. And also that fucking song from Stranger Things is number 1 or something, like, again from the 80s, and it's so bizarre. It is like a weird harkening back. And I don't know if this is a little off topic, but that Running Up the Hill by
oh gotcha, yeah,
that's everywhere and you can't
Kate
avoid
Bush?
Yes.
Kate
Well, I
Bush
was-
is literally
I-
literally magic from Juilliard.
So,
and
so check
Aleister
this out
Crowley.
for synchronicity. I didn't realize before because a lot of people were saying it was just a TikTok overlay music on a video, but it turned out to be that no, Kate Bush's song "Running Up That Hill" was also being played while that giant creepy grim reaper was hovering over all the hospital beds at the Olympics opening ceremony.
Did they play that song during
They
that?
played that fucking song, dude,
Wow.
during that creepy COVID
Really?
ceremony.
I remember the ceremony,
Okay.
but yeah.
Yeah,
huh.
I didn't know. None of
you
us
know what?
looked at the song at the time because no one gave a fuck until the Stranger Things made it popular again.
Why did why did they not make cloud busting famous? See, that's the one I want. I want the Kate the
Right?
Kate Bush
Or-
song.
Well,
That's
about-
too on the
like
nose,
Oregon.
man. It's way
I
too
want-
on the nose.
I want the Oregon energy,
Yeah, and you know what? I actually made a little post. Well, I'm trying to analyze running up the hill. Well, if you look at the words, running up the
Yeah.
hill, Ruth, right? Ruth, right? So I automatically thought about the book of Ruth.
Oh, there you go. It makes
and-
sense.
Yeah, and if you know the book of Ruth, they talked about
Laying down in his bed with her hair at the bed. Ugh, I see it in the music video, the first frame. That's what she's doing.
yeah.
Sorry.
Well, this all syncs up with because Ruth is she married Boaz, right? Jacqueline and Boaz,
Mhm.
And basically she was serving the role of a handmaid, right? That's what she was. She was voluntary.
What I remember is that her okay, so these three brothers come to town from the home improvement show, and then they die because they marry they marry Goyim, they marry Shiksas. But Ruth, despite being a Shiksa, stays around and marries the whatever brother later. She becomes a Jew and she marries the prince or king or whatever, and so she becomes. But the other thing that's weird is Ruth doesn't have if you take the top letters of it in Hebrew, it writes Elohim or something like that, or one of the names of God. Like it's that was one of the main reasons they kept it in the canonical Bible.
Yeah. Okay. So basically, I'm trying to connect to the fact that she was the handmaid. She was volunteering to help the mother of Boaz. But and this was a time when they were syncing up with the abortion, right? They banned the abortion at the same time that episode came out on Strangers.
Yeah.
So there's something going on there. That's what I'm trying to say.
You're telling like the Handmaid's Tale.
Yeah, Handmaid's Tale, exactly.
Is
I
the
thought,
book
you
of
were, I
Ruth,
thought
yeah.
you were going to a Lamed direction, but I got you.
Dude, I'm more. Everyone loves Handmaid's Tale. I'm a Children of Men guy. Doesn't even remember that movie? Is it the City of Men? Children of
Hell
Men?
yeah.
It's like everyone
Strawberry
can't have
cough,
babies.
man.
Dude, aren't we living in that world soon? I mean, it feels.
Yeah,
Are we?
that's next year. Next year is
Yeah.
did you and did you read about that? Oh, this is creepy as hell. Yesterday just came on New York Times. They talk about normalizing cannibalism.
Oh,
Yeah, dude.
we do need to cover that. That's
This is
true.
the year of Soylent Green.
Yeah.
Yeah, I read that whole article because I'm like,
Oh, you
really,
did?
and it was kind of an advertisement for those shows or whatever that they're like, in this show they don't. But what the fuck to no mention of Kuru? Am I pronouncing that right?
Right.
What
Yeah.
the fuck, dude? Like, I'm like, you don't want to maybe like throw in there like what
So-
actually happens to you physically when you do this?
I got one better for you that'll blow your mind. So this video, I show this on Base AF Monday. At least I mentioned it, and I recommend guys you actually watch this video from SciShow, and it's got nearly 1 million views, and it's a pretty popular channel. It's definitely well produced by some people with money, and it's all about the health benefits of cannibalism. And this is from 2017, and there's a number of videos like this. In fact, another easy thing to do, type in Smithsonian cannibalism, and you will just find article after article from the Smithsonian about Europe's hypocritical history of cannibalism. They say it's taboo, but all the rich people did it and are still doing it. They even acknowledge at the end of the article talking about certain things. Fall in love with cannibalism this Valentine's Day, Smithsonian Magazine. How common was cannibalism? I mean, if you just keep looking for it, you'll find crazy amounts of
Yeah, so
cannibalism.
can I
But,
just?
but the last thing is this
Okay.
article, this video, he talks about Kuru. That's all I wanted to say.
This is like Maria Abramovic.
He says,
Her
hey,
crap.
Kuru. He basically says, hey, Kuru's overrated. It's not that big of a deal. You can handle it, especially if you start using PETA to grow your own skin, right? Which is what Adam Krigler called Ouroboros meat. and it's brilliant. I think it's a great. I mean, I wish he'd trademarked it, but he's just not evil enough to try to make money off the idea. But if you had called, imagine a company called Ouroboros Meat, and you get the petri dish at home, and like a fingertip or an ear, David, remember I said was a mutilation, but 1 million cells is just a statistic. So we're at that point where you can grow your own meat without hurting anybody. And where'd that money come from? PETA, because PETA said, hey, if no one gets hurt, if we're not harming the animal, we can grow meat, right? Well, if we're not harming the animal, then it doesn't matter what kind of animal it is.
Right.
Cannibalism is popular today. Thanks, New Yorker.
Yeah, can I just, when you mention Marina Abramovic, that like I read her book, I read her autobiography, I saw her exhibit in Stockholm, Sweden. It was some crazy shit. I'm gonna kind of just like jump the gun here and say like something that I don't know in any absolute terms, but my takeaway from like her trip, I think she fucking trolled all those people. I don't think that she fucking decides who it is that's into her and for what fucking reasons, and like the shit stick up.
You think she's a shill?
I think that she's more that she's not just a shill. Like yes, I mean a shill is one thing, but I think she's literally like doing like a performance art thing on like a whole other level. And she's like, oh, the Rothschild wants to like pose with me in front of the fucking like whatever. She's just like, cool, photo op. Like I think the whole way along, like she just fucking does not give a fuck about any of these people that are into her. And she just like, I mean, all in terms of their worldly positions and all these things, like I don't think she's actually oriented towards any of that, because she's been a fucking struggling artist as long as Yoko Ono has been a non-struggling artist. Like, and like her the elaborateness of the shit that she's done in the past, like how can I not look at what she's been doing in the last
I love David's hot
take. A continuation about that.
David's hot take. You're never going to hear this anywhere else. She's just shilling. She's not into spirit cooking enough. It's just all fake. It's like nobody can say about it.
I'm not even saying that it's fake. I'm saying that I think like her sense of humor is like not a normal sense of humor.
Oh, she's definitely isn't she Serbian or she's not? She's like Croatian. I get it. I mean,
this, I was like,
I have you know what they believe where I come from? Like in my village, if you get your finger or hurt or something like that, your parents will tell you it's lucky, because it means a single drop of blood means, you're lucky. It means you're gonna have a good day. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger. So it's literally intuitive, like, oh, it's going to be like if you prick your finger on your wedding day, it's going to be such a wonderful day. This is the kind of culture that exists in Eastern Europe. Still,
what is this? Transylvania? Your family's from?
little west, but yeah, close.
No, I mean, I walked into the exhibit, and the first room is all paintings, depictions of car accidents, and then there's an explanation about a car accident that she was in, and how her trauma processing around it was just to paint fucking car accidents for days. And then you go into the next room, and there was a vehicle in the middle of the room that was an old propaganda vehicle, where in Europe they would project the sound from the vehicle just like going down the street to like imprint propaganda on people. So you're like, it's an interesting artifact to have, because it's like, wow, look at where we are now with propaganda, and look at where they were then. So it's just like seeing it in of itself is kind
of ties you back to the machinist too.
Go for it.
That's true.
Oh no, he was just talking about avoiding the car accident, and this is saying this is processing the car accident.
Right.
Yeah, that's true.
Totally.
So again, it's I just want to say, like, I don't have a specific point of view on her, but I think what David's maybe getting at is, there is this idea of who bottles up and refuses to look at their trauma versus somebody who does full on face their trauma. And to everyone looking at the person full on facing their trauma, they're like, wow, this person is putting out really traumatic shit and they must be into really fucked up stuff. It's like, no, this is someone who's going into their own fucking darkness, not necessarily.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
And so I go into the next room, and there's a giant pile of fucking cow bones. That's just like, you can smell it. It's just like, and they're not completely without flesh. So there's this huge pile of cow bones, and then there's a screen behind that would like project in round. So I like happened to walk in there at just the right moment, because there was like a 10-minute talk on the phenomenon of the, like, it's not the king rat, it's not the rat king, because that's a phenomenon how they predict pandemics or whatever, but there's like the how they would find in Russia the top rat where like they put a bunch of rats together and which one ends up being the last survivor of all the rats, and then they put that one with another. They
It's like a cockfight with rats. Yeah.
Yeah, and she's explaining this, and she's wearing like a lab coat in this video, and then like at the end of her whole explanation, she like reaches into her cleavage and she pulls out like this long like piece of fabric, and then she does like it's this kind of interpretive dance that almost looked like flamenco or something, and she just like goes around the room like that. And then it's like, and then it's like, ta-da, that's that. And it's like, what the fuck? And I go into the next room and there's somebody who's scrubbing at a actual like human skeleton that's like dirty, and they're like trying to clean it. And they're just like, I'm like, this person's in there all day just like fucking cleaning this fucking skeleton. I don't know what the fuck.
It's like a Gurdjieff thing. Yeah.
Yeah. So I go into the next room and there's just like, there's like 1,000 images of her live, like not just images, but film like shots of her sitting with different people, so it's their faces up close. So like whoever she's sitting with her, because she does that thing where she sits down with somebody and they just stare in each other's eyes.
These pork legs? Look at this, just a pile of pork legs.
That's what it was, dude. It was like that. And I was like, what the fuck? And so
but if you saw Ozzy Osbourne doing it, you'd been like, rock on.
And so there's all this footage of her sitting and staring with people, but then in the middle of it, there's footage of her with like all these children who are like singing this song about the UN that's like made up, but it's like super satirical and kind of like saying some fucked up shit about the UN. And she's dressed in black and she's got a skeleton on her back, so it looks like, and she's composing. So she's standing in front of the children. And it looks like she's composing the song while they just like say all this shit about the UN. And it's like, here's like a patriotic song to the UN, like, but like I seriously, like I walked away from that. It's like I can't do it complete justice. I'm just giving like a synopsis or whatever. But I walked away from that being like, wow, that was subversive as fuck, dude. Like that was really subversive. And so somebody like that, I don't not entertain the idea that if they're within a group that's being subversive in one way, that she won't be subversive against them on another level. And so like that's my takeaway. Like I don't know in any absolute terms, but I think that she's just like fucking just like playing all those people.
So it's like AOC kind of just like constant chaos in every direction. I like it.
Well,
hey, I hate to cut in here, but I gotta head out. I got another show I gotta do. Dude, thanks for having me on. I know I didn't say much this time around. I was just listening to all this fantastic shit. We're
gonna have to get you back to talk about devil metal, because I know that the satanic panic and metal music. It's right.
Talk about letting the shadow fly loose. Metalheads unite, man. Hell yeah, man.
Right. Hey, your name is Andy?
Yes, sir.
Andy. Hey, nice to meet you, man. I hope to see you again.
Nice to meet you too, man. And by the way, my wife just recently made me, or just offered up anyway, asked me to name one of our new cannabis plants Hecate.
Oh, really?
Oh, fantastic.
You can't stop
just to tie it all together.
Is there some kind of triple aspect to the cannabis plant? No, just
or the Hecate. Okay. I don't know. Let's keep it.
The Koreans have a third kind of cannabis that's not sativa or indica. Is that what you're asking, or what?
Well, it's the triple goddess. I thought maybe there was some specific why choose that name. But
I got through. Well, no, that's
just the goddess of the underworld. So I get it. Yeah.
Anyway,
thanks for having me. Before you go, you said that you're gonna talk about death metal, whatever, right? I mean, the Stranger Things. They're talking about the inspiration of Eddie Munson, right? The new character,
right? This phenomenon.
He's inspired by Damien Ethels, right? The Memphis 3, the murder.
I kind of had that thought early on in the season, like, all right, this is 80s, so this harkens right back to the satanic panic surrounding Eccles and all that. So yeah. Okay. Makes sense. Yeah, ties in nicely. We could talk about Stranger Things all fucking night. So, all right, guys.
Watch the Deep Share and check him out on Instagram and Twitter. We'll have links there below.
Peace. Hell yeah! Thanks, guys.
Awesome.
See you.
Thank you.
Well, I want to bring up anyway, even if our resident metalhead's gone, I know we all have a little bit of expert in the alternatives of culture. And Jim Morrison came up, I think, before when we were talking a bit about the Laurel Canyon. Did we get into Laurel Canyon last time? I think we did. A little bit. So it'd be good to continue on that train a little bit. You guys can see ourselves seeing ourselves. That's super meta. Where is it at? Oh, well, okay. I really should also bring this up. Existence of Loch Ness monsters plausible after fossil discovery. They're trying to say they found Argentinosaurus all over the place in giant lakes. But wait, where were we? We were trying to find.
Oh, you know what? Since you brought up the Laurel Canyon, Dave McGowan, right? Who wrote the book, the Laurel Canyon and the military industrial complex. I forgot what the book is called. his brother almost died. Craig is actually part of the group, but yeah, something happened to him. He was like possessed for like a whole 2 weeks. Anyway, I just thought I'd bring it up.
Man, I was gonna pull into the punk thing, just a recap of the documentary I found in The Secrets on Field of Vision. Have you guys already seen this? Have you seen this yet?
Mhm.
So this is a documentary on the Cramps and the Mutiny band, punk rock band in 1978, playing at the Davis Prison and the Napa State Mental Hospital. And so what they did was they figured out how to get in to the mental hospital, drop a bunch of acid out in the hands of all of these patients, and play this crazy Gestalt, Gerchief, throw some words around, chaos punk music, which Discordian music, right? That for mental patients on acid might have been this kind of Lippmann Gestalt therapy that was. And when you look into the people involved, right? For instance, let me go back to, where's his name? They were doing these shows, right? Chris Burden doing these shows in the 70s, and they're these very Abramovich style shows. And into 1969, 68, you've got these abstract expressionistic performance sculpture shows where people are cutting themselves, screaming, all the trappings of a modern Abramovich show. And this is the kind of thing that Jim Morrison really wanted to do.
It was Est time too, and Jim Morrison's thing was a lot to do with the living theater. But yeah,
well, yeah, no, go in. So talk about the living theater and Jim Morrison.
Well, it was just, you had hair, and so hair at the end, everyone got naked or whatever. And so it was very shortly before the Miami incident, he actually had attended the Living Theater and was very impacted by it. One of the things that they would do is they would put a minimal amount of tape or something that was basically that they could be naked and be in the bare minimum of what was legally allowed or whatever. And they would walk through the audience. The actors would walk through the audience and just repeat lines that made people kind of think I'm ashamed of what's most beautiful and things of that nature. And so he saw that, and then it was kind of this thing of people's tensions around, just basically what is your natural self and what this whole
Andy
idea.
Kaufman.
And so yeah, it's very Andy Kaufman absolutely. It's totally what comes to my mind as well. Because
So what was going on? Because you've got Stanislavski method, and you've got this the kind of actors that are working in one direction, and then more and more and more, you got this Kate Bush, Juilliard School, Val Kilmer.
Well, she was a child prodigy for real. I mean, she started so young, and she's so.
But they put her through Juilliard, right? It's like that movie Black Widow. Come on, isn't it?
Oh, I see. Interesting. Yeah, there might be another reason why she was chosen for the, to be the emphasis in Stranger Things. There, I don't know.
I wonder. Yeah, she seemed that could be
but she's right in line with some of those classic female musicians, the Inverted Odysseys lady, Laurie Anderson and stuff. Where it's just there's this kind of very independent style, especially in the context of the times where they're just doing something really different, and yeah, there was something I wanted to say to Stranger Things beyond that. I think that it should be kind of required viewing for Stranger Things to watch the fucking first ever Tom Hanks movie. Did we discuss that last time or recently?
No.
The Two Towers, the Mazes and Monsters.
Mazes and Monsters. Let me find this.
So Mazes and Monsters, I believe is the.
Is that the one where he's in the room, the bedroom thing or whatever? No.
It's like a made for TV movie that was basically a scare movie. It's hard to tell. You're yeah, this is a comedy somewhat.
Oh, about RPGs, but Dungeons and Dragons.
But he goes crazy with Dungeons and Dragons, but then and the time in which it came out, it was right in line with when there. So talk about cancel culture. That was the thing. Is that Republicans back in the 80s wanted to cancel Dungeons and Dragons, and I say that as a general statement, not all Republicans, but a lot of the Christian.
A lot of the Christian bloc, the Christian voting bloc,
wanted to get rid of Dungeons and Dragons because they felt like it was contaminating their children with Satanism or whatever. Dungeons and Dragons takes obviously a lot from European occultism and all kinds of ways, you know, and sometimes they'll change things slightly and sometimes they won't even change something at all. You know, they'll be making references to Gotia. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. The grimoire and these different places. They glean inspiration from.
Is Gotia different than Goetia or whatever?
Oh, I'm probably pronouncing it wrong. Yeah, excuse my ignorance. But yeah, so this movie culminates at the two towers.
It's pronounced Gotia? Is it pronounced Gotia? That's how I'm supposed to say it?
I don't know. I'm probably pronouncing it wrong.
I think you're probably right. I'm gonna start saying it.
But anyway, yeah, no, it's just you can kind of you can see the cultural implications at the time with this movie, but also that just the synchronicity and the weirdness of it, because it's like Tom Hanks wants to kill himself and he goes to the top of the World Trade Center to do it. Flash forward years later, there was that other Tom Hanks film where he died in the World Trade Center and his son is like processing it or whatever. It's something, what is it called? Something incredibly loud and some shit. I don't know what it's called. Where he's like a firefighter who dies in the World Trade Center. It's more recent. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Anyway, but yeah, this film is very in line with what they were speaking.
Extremely loud and incredibly close.
Yeah.
Right.
So like, yeah, so he has his debut film was Two Towers. This film, in both cases, one, he's going to commit suicide from them by falling from the towers. And then in this one, it's his son is speculating on if he's the falling man or one of the falling people, you know.
You know what? We should have overlooked the fact that Tom Hanks is related to Abraham Lincoln.
Oh yeah, is he? Oh, that makes sense because that movie.
His mother is well, Hank. You know, Hank is Lincoln's mom. Is what's her name? Last name Hanks.
Whoa.
I know we talked about this last week because I can remember we were discussing his son.
We did talk about his son. Tom Hanks comes up more than it should.
Chet.
But Chet came in. Chet Hanks or whatever.
Oh, right. And that brings me back to the thing where you're saying Chet, and I didn't know what you were saying. You're saying Chet.
Oh,
you're speaking to the Hebrew letter Chet.
Okay.
I got confused because when I'm hearing Chet, I'm thinking of the guy from Weird Science. I wasn't putting it together that you're speaking Chet. Yeah.
Chet, the eighth letter.
So that's why you're saying with the blood on the door is because how it was painted around the door is.
That's what I was trying to say. Yeah.
Yeah. Dig it.
So it's I mean, who's gonna just the fact that he named his son Chet is Chet's been like all over the place. Like I don't know why he's got on all these podcasts just trying to defend his family's fame, you know, the reputation of his family. I was like, well, the more you explain that you're not associated with the Illuminati, the more we want to believe it.
I mean, but it seems like, you know, the Satanic Panic, it got to the point where it was, you know, and I remember, and I've made some videos on this where I've included Geraldo's Satanic Panic interviews with Michael Aquino, and he's got all these other people around to make it look like we're going to cover the Satanic Panic and really look into the blah, 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 you know, kind of this, but then all he does is he makes it look it's exaggerated. There's all these Americans who are freaking out and have nothing to point to. They're like, hey, I don't know where, but I know what's happening. Okay. And then you've got the guy that the most I don't know how to say it, you know, but one of the most important cases is the Michael Aquino Oakland military base case. You know, Eddie, you said your dad was there. And they made that look like nothing happened. And then that was the wash, right? So now we know there's nothing going on ever, right? Ever. Why? Because
the whole building is demolished. I mean, it's been bulldozed. I mean, well, here's the funny, well, not funny, because my aunt actually just passed away. My aunt, my dad's full sister. He has a lot of half sisters. So she passed away. I think she got killed by the vax. I don't know. There's no proof. But her husband also worked with my dad at the Presidio at Letterman Hospital. So the funeral is the 31st, and they keep asking me if I'm vaxxed. I'm like, you're not gonna let me go to the funeral because I'm not vaxxed?
Ironies are pretty high these days. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know because I have so many questions to ask him. Since my dad is pretty tight-lipped about the whole thing with whether he encountered him or not, but yeah, I don't know. I'm still debating whether to go. It's 5 days from now, so I don't know if I want to drive all the way up north. They live in what is it called? Not Hawthorne. It's in the Bay Area, South Bay.
I know that a big thing about the overgeneralization, on one hand, it's terrible because everyone completely dismissed that there could even be anything going on, because they're like, clearly the problem is too much soda pop and video games and rock and roll, and it's these kids are conflating TV cartoons, and the symbols in their minds are telling them that these things are happening, when we know that's not completely true either. There were definitely lots of victims of all sorts of horrible things going on. It's not like the Me Too movement is a new phenomenon, really, but maybe except for that we're trying to acknowledge it more. And so that's the thing. The Satanic Panic maybe said, hey, stop looking for the weird looking teenagers and 30-year-old guys wearing all black, because they're, chances are they might not be as bad as the real evil that knows how to dress in sheep's clothing and knows how to look like a businessman or a priest or a celebrity or a politician, something that is socially acceptable.
It brings up the scapegoat, like most things, like everything kind of comes back to the scapegoat. But like that, I mean, if you watch Stranger Things, at least the way that they're kind of like in the over the top way that they're showing it, they really emphasize that idea that it's like you want a place to put the blame because the person dies. Surely they weren't buying drugs. Surely they have no connection to this person. Therefore, it must be that these people are to blame. It's, in other words, like when you can't deal with something, you have something that is bringing up a lot of anxiety, and in order to release that anxiety, it helps people in their mind to have some place to project who is at fault. And so I think that the Satanic Panic is a great example of that, because not everybody's coming from the same place for the same reasons. Like a lot of people who entertain that stuff, like they don't take Satanism seriously. Like that's not there. It's kind of I don't know. It's just it's strange. It's kind of a paradox, because it's like some people who are really concerned about Satan are kind of like empowering the very evils that they want to, it's like the Nietzsche quote again always comes back to that, like, be careful that you don't become like, what is it, Alan? Should you become like a...
Oh, you talk staring out into the abyss. A battle with monsters. Yeah. Battle not with monsters, lest you become a monster.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's the idea of the scapegoat phenomenon, that oftentimes when people are very fixated on something, they can, through some strange kind of backdoor process, like become the very thing that they set out that they, to conquer. It's what energetic are you meeting that with? Like, it's all about, you have to check in with yourself,
But we've set up, oh, go ahead.
No, I'm just saying those are the people who believe it in the most. If it's just like, average everyday people, who don't think much about Satanism, they're just regular folks who go to church whenever they want to do, but people who actually like the Bible thumpers are the ones that
right. Like I don't want to pigeonhole any groups of people when I have this conversation, but it's hard to have this conversation
Homophobes.
without making generalizations.
Homophobes. I can get a great example. Homophobes tend to be homosexuals. If you don't believe me, look at some of the homophobic politicians and religious leaders on Wikipedia being outed for their scenarios. I mean, people will completely disgustingly hate themselves so much. They're so sick of themselves that instead of figuring out what it is about themselves, and it's probably a choice-based thing a lot of the time, then they put it off on everyone else, and they, that's a huge thing. Is where
where the fuck did this idea that like political parties determine your, like, I get the policy stuff and the arguments around that. That's like one conversation, but like I feel like I've talked to you about this before. Like I was seeing like a while back this like list, and it was like, here's the list of all of these politicians, all these Democrat politicians who have been popped for pedophilia and like sexual misconduct and all this stuff. And I'm like, that is a fucking long list. Holy shit.
But you can make it a little bit longer.
So like I go ahead and I just copy paste the first few names from the list along, with whatever, and I put it into Google, and what do I get? I get a list that's over twice as long that now includes the Republicans who have been popped for the same type of shit. And it's like, and what is up with the motherfucker that wanted to share that list while cutting it in half? Because to me, by that, whoever did that, that is like, oh, so in order to remain partisan, you would diminish the commonness of this thing that you're supposedly a crusader against. So if you're really against the fucking thing that you're talking about, you'd think that you wouldn't do something as dishonest to cut the list in more than half. You know, I'm just saying. That's
yeah.
yeah.
But they're rhinos, David. They're rhinos. Republicans in name only, right?
Okay.
You just look at like people like we're going back to what we were talking about the other day. Alex Jones going to Bohemian Grove, and you just we're talking about people who are going to this theatrical, all men going to the deepest of the redwood jungle, and they I don't know, just these people are so into this. It's not even about rituals or whatnot, but they're into the theatrics of good and evil. You know,
Sure.
it's I don't even know how to describe it. It's basically they say, well, everybody is partaking in this drama of the unending, never ending fight.
See, that's why I get like, so here's the thing. So Anton LaVey, kind of annoying guy. I mean, I get why his daughter changed her name to Shrek, but at the end of the day, kind of interesting guy as well. And he came up with some interesting ideas. I'm not saying like go join the Church of Satan, but the Church of Satan with its beach cleanups and its daycare programs, not exactly the tenets of evil that we were taught about by the Disney
Channel. You don't know
Channel.
what goes on in those daycare programs. And
I do. I was in one. We're both from Santa Cruz. Come on,
You were in
daycare program in SoCal High School actually had a bunch of the kids do beach cleanups after the junior high. So that those programs continue on, and they're the thing is that's not my problem with them. There's a lot of other really annoying things about each one of them individually.
I have many problems with them. One of my more like first problems that I ever had was just reading the fucking that Anton LaVey's Satanic Bible and just
I was like,
what an idiot this guy is.
Like, yeah, it took first semester of logic and ethics.
Fucking Mary Baker Eddy's Science and Health. You're like, what a fucking idiot.
That's why.
But so yeah, again,
that's why Michael Aquino walked out. Michael Aquino said, "I'm fed up with this bullshit."
Right, and so you've got these other. So the thing is, you've got a group of guys who like to dress up like the Addams Family and really love the Munsters and Elvira. Okay, I get it. They like to wear.
I especially get the Elvira thing, but yeah,
she's hot. But the clothing isn't enough to make you evil, and I agree with Anton LaVey on that. The people that wear evil clothing aren't necessarily evil. And if you've played any video games like Knights of the Old Republic, where you take the dark side, if you run around just being an asshole, you're not gonna get nearly as many evil points. If you go pretend to be a good guy, you can do a lot more evil things. So there's this thing about good and evil, and you have to think about Aleister Crowley, right? Aleister Crowley, he's talking about a reset. He's talking about an apocalypse. He's talking about the time after the apocalypse. He's saying the new age. Mm-hmm. And the new age movement and all these more positive things that aren't really about good or evil. They're about order and chaos, right?
Which reoccur like every 100 years, big time. And they even use like pretty much the same terminology every time it comes around. The new age movement is such an old movement that that every time those new age terms come around, they're like, wow, that was really similar to what they were saying 100 years ago. So it's also like, people don't want to work. People say that like it's a new fucking thing. You can go back through time and find fucking a million fucking articles that say the exact words. People don't want to work. Dating back to the fucking 1800s in America, like, what's the problem? There's jobs available. People just don't want to work. It's like, yeah, dude, what the fuck did you think? People are gonna you think that it's gonna be like?
That was a big thing in Germany, right? So Maria Orsic and the Thule Society, they have the Vril books, right? And they talk about this idea that some kind of consciousness is broadcasting a message to us, and the message is how to build a vacuum cleaner, or how to build an energy system so that it will disrupt the human status quo's relationships, structure of the family unit, the community at large, the idea of work in general, because if water wheels start to replace workers, it's amazing.
Right.
What
can
happen.
The family unit thing is always something that's so loaded with various sides, because on one level you need the fucking family unit in the same way that people need to be able to organize. One of the problems with the way that the social media and everything is existing is making it harder and harder to fucking organize, because everyone kind of gravitates towards a bubble, and the algorithm encourages that. Everything seems to encourage that. Also, just like canceling people, being like, oh, you said something I don't like. It's one thing if somebody's harassing someone, you're like, get the fuck out. But at the same time, people will like literally like, I mean, I probably fucking actually blocked maybe 4 people in my entire time on fucking Facebook, because it's like, and the only times that would happen is like when it came to that, it's like, all right, no, I'm officially done. Not because my ego's bruised, but because this is genuinely like beyond fucking ridiculous, you know. But yeah, I mean,
it's gonna get worse. Don't pretend it won't.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I don't know.
Alan,
It's just,
Alan, what do you think about social fragmentation in the last 5 years?
Oh God, I mean, is it not self-evident? I mean, I obviously, you know, it exists. You don't need me to verify that. It's, I guess the question would come is like, what do we do to actually kind of rectify that in some way, or how to, I don't know what to do. I mean, you're talking about like whether it's social media, I certainly has not made us more social. You know, and then I see the other side of it is like, I don't look at social media for weeks at a time. I work in a very busy bar and I see people out and meeting each other. And I do think there is, you know, there is something that's you cannot get online. I love being online. I'm not like anti-technology in any way. I love computers and the artwork that's allowed me to make. And the fact that we can make this phone call right now and broadcast this to how many people and all that. It's all plenty of positives to it, but I don't know, you know, just being out around people and looking people in the eye and touching their skin, you know, I don't mean that like in a sexual way, just like
I like to look people in the mouth too, but yeah.
Oh yeah, I'm a big fan of looking people in the mouth. Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, I think there's something, you know, and when I said touching skin is even like literally like when I hand somebody a drink or they hand me money or something, and it's like physical human contact with, could be somebody I think is a total asshole, somebody I want nothing to do with, but it's a very real visceral experience that I think, and again, that has its own downfalls. I mean, everyone's drunk and shitty, and you know, there's a whole host of problems there. I'm not advocating everyone go out and get drunk, unless you come to my bar and tip me well. But I just want to say, like, I do think that no matter what is happening in our world with social media, you're not going to undo the craving for real human interaction. And I don't think, you know, while I'm very pessimistic about things like war and all that sort of stuff, when we talk about this, I do strongly believe in the human spirit and the need for us to interact with one another.
Yeah, I mean, I vibe with the internet issues there. I feel like I've seen people become, because of the internet, both fragmented but uniform. It's like they're more and more similar. Everyone's got the same sound bites, but they've been packaged by different meme groups, different clubs, different, you know, like there's like 3 or 4 different flavors of the digestible data. And that, because of that, the brand loyalty has become more important than the substance itself. So you have people that really think that the differences between them are the things that they have the most in common with. For instance, being obsessed with their group, their whatever their ideological, socioeconomic party, or fascistic collective, or male rights advocates. I mean, they just seem all the same in a sad way.
Did you notice that that people who are actually involved in like where they're like actually policy stuff and they're really like trying to make significant change literally in the world, that they tend to be really invested in symbology and symbolic gestures.
Meme magicians,
people that are just really immersed in symbology and being symbol literate tend to not give a fuck about the symbolic gestures.
Yeah, but they'll wear the flag.
Like one takes off where the other one, like, why is it like that? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like,
so you remember you said Lucis Trust last time talking about the Occupy movement, and it's interesting if you there's a lot of great people that lost their homes, and you know, some people that tried to help others who lost their homes who didn't. And then there are groups that figured, hey, we could turn this into a cash grab where we're selling water bottles, you know, on the internet from ladies on Facebook that want to support it. And the Lucis Trust is involved and calling it Occupy, a legal term, because it's having the UN occupy. I mean,
right.
Any example like that, it seems that they're, you know, BLM is, you know, there's a lot of people that really want to support the fact that Black lives do in fact matter, right? It's a fact, that matter. I mean, in the sense that all lives could matter at all. Really, there's a lot of nihilists out there that think no lives matter. But if we're trying to bring relevance to it, there's nothing wrong with that. The problem is when you start to look into the groups, associations, and magic, their use of BLM from Bureau of Land Management in order to carry on the synchromystic meme, Bureau of Land Management taking over large sections of the United States with Napoleonic law.
Crazy. That one trips me out in terms of Burning Man too. The Burning Man ends and BLM takes off. And it was like, at least ended for a while. You know what I mean? Like there was like,
right. Yeah.
It was like, wait, what?
Because you couldn't sell, racial equality to hipster Silicon Valley kids. You sold Burning Man, but it's still, the point is the same. They have a sexy thing in the front that is leading with whatever else is involved. And I agree. I think that a number of the people at the top are more interested in marketing and aesthetic and meme magic.
So can I make a comment? Because I mean, so. I've been to when I lived in New York, that was during Occupy. I've been there. I've been there for lots of anti-war protests. I've been there for all sorts of like in the street political actions. And I will say every time I went to those sorts of things, let's say obviously Occupy, you're looking at something that is like a national policy movement. You're looking
at undercover feds there. I remember. Yeah.
Well, sure. But what I mean though is the issue at hand is directed at a very broad national movement. Like, hey, we're going to. I went to a thing for like end the Federal Reserve. Okay, this is a national policy we're protesting, an anti-war movement that is a national policy movement, but Black Lives Matter, I went to a number of their protests as well, totally in support. And every person I spoke to there, and bear in mind, I've spoke to people, and it's just like anything else, I spoke to people with multiple political backgrounds, people who were very well versed in, very well versed in like anarchist philosophy. Then you have socialists, you have communists, you have just your run-of-the-mill liberals, you have whatever. Like literally there was a ton of people, but here's the thing that I thought was also really interesting. It was not like hey, we want this very specific, very abstract or very specific law that is going to be passed nationwide or whatever. This was literally people who were there to say, hey, I would just want something, I don't want to be fucking treated this way. And to watch of all the protests that I've been to, those are the ones where the police fucking pepper sprayed us and fucking, shooting all these things at us. And it's like, okay, so these kids were literally like, I want my local police officer to they just killed somebody in my town, so even when Black Lives Matter was happening, we had a local thing that was about a few months earlier, and people were there and trying to raise awareness for this local person, which didn't make national news. It's not like it wasn't a George Floyd, but it's like, hey, this is what's going on. And I just think it's really fascinating that it was a local action. Make of that whatever you will. I just want you to put that into your mix as somebody who was in it. Is not only was it seemingly a very local action, it also had the heaviest response of police abuse that I've ever, of any political event I've ever been to.
When was this a specific thing you're talking about?
2020.
Yeah. Okay. So this is the thing, is that, or I don't know if it's the thing, but what really gets me is like in terms of like, it could be a form of engineered consent in the Bernaysian sense, coining that, or it could just be the way things are. But it really felt like that was a pivotal time where people, if you're strategizing with the public, that that you want to do certain things, and that the public's going to respond a certain way, just theoretically, wouldn't it make sense to give them an outlet for them to go out and feel like they're doing something? Because when you're also
you take away Malcolm X.
So it's like, and that felt very directed. And so like, and at the same time, there is plenty of like extremely, extremely well-intentioned people taking part in something. and maybe within a lot of that there is in the midst of that direction some difference being made, and like, and just like I don't believe in like absolute control. So like when we talk,
but there could
about,
be
like,
one person with a microphone in front of a mob of people, and that microphone could be connected to the 4 channels that exist.
Totally, and it's the influence thing. And it's the reason why I personally am really not drawn to go to those events. I think I said this last week, even, or the week before, is that it just takes one person in a crowd that's holding the line, one person to throw a fucking soup can, and now all of a sudden everyone's gonna get hit with rubber bullets and fucking gas.
Because it's great optics. It's great optics. Do you guys remember the December's coup? I mean, you guys weren't alive, but in 1825, there was a coup in Russia that failed. And it was it was kind of the first Russian coup attempt. The socialists who knew about it at the time and the Marxist influenced were trying to stop it because they knew that if this happened, they wouldn't be able to do it a little bit later and succeed at it themselves and take it over. So they went around trying to suppress some of these. Actually, like as Mark said, the workers will rise up on their own independently. It'll just eventually happen. Well, they made sure that didn't happen by trying to suppress any sort of movement like that. So I mean,
this was right after the Japanese Russian war, because Russia was defeated by Japan. I think that was right after, So the whole country basically was losing faith in the system. The czars is now holding up this.
It's a really weirdly similar time to now, and when we look at again some of these protest movements that have happened, like let's say January 6th or something like that. I even believe, and I know as a fact because I've met some of these like mothers, and I was living in Maryland at the time, and I wasn't at the thing, but I definitely heard like ladies in airports when I was flying back from New Jersey, I think, saying they couldn't leave because they'd been put on no flight list. And some of these were just like moms that were on a wiki or a Facebook group and had gone to this thing. But at the end of the day, how much do you know about what you're going to, especially if someone's going to try to use it as an optics campaign for themselves.
Well, speaking of this, anyone who's watched Alan's great documentary,
Hindsight
2020, he goes into his own personal experience with what was it? It was a kind of a, what was the protest? It was at Ground Zero, and then you had your apartment stuff happening with your neighbors telling you what were you doing in there.
Oh God, yeah.
I mean, isn't that right? Kind of in line with the kind of stuff that we're talking about here.
Well, don't go David Letterman on us. Tell us. What is he saying?
Oh well, gosh. I mean, that's such a long story, but yeah, like exactly. I have gone to a lot of like after I went to a it was really just like a meeting. You talk about all these like different like optics and movements, and the popular protests of any given time and all that sort of stuff. It's like. Do you guys remember who Cindy Sheehan was?
Oh yeah. Oh my God, I forgot about her.
Yeah, well, exactly. So like, she was there. And not Wesley Clark, but anyway, it was like
Webster,
it was just
Tarpley?
No.
Okay.
But it was just like people. It was an offshoot of the anti-war movement that was saying, "Hey, this is how we would go through the process of impeaching George Bush for war crimes." Okay, it was literally like a lecture, kind of like, "Hey, these are the steps we would have to take. These are the specific policies that would be needed." Blah blah blah. And this is how you'd gain traction for that. And I'm just literally just sat in it was literally in a church in Harlem, and there was like, maybe a few hundred people there, and okay, they talked, and then we all left. And then the next day, fucking Homeland Security shows up at my house, and I'm like, oh, so like literally I'm protesting that you're abusing your powers and saying, and then you're like, this is the fucking power.
That's how that shit works. That's the thing. It's in such plain sight,
Yeah. So like, I mean, that was the most innocent thing. And that's what I'm saying, so that's, again, it had a very, it was a very quiet political action that had a very quiet, but heavy-handed response, right? They didn't pull me out of the church. They didn't fucking beat the shit out of us in that church. They waited till I fucking got home and then showed up at my house and said, "We want to know who the fuck you are." Right. Whereas
probably had your cell phone on you.
Right.
Which is
Yeah.
like that's really like Abby Hoffman days of the 70s CIA. Well, it's like church committee level. Let's hang some kids over bridges. They're really like these are the second gen of that kind of
Oh yeah.
brown shirts, you know.
So then you look at like, and so I do want to go back to Black Lives Matter for a second, because again, so counter that or just juxtapose that with the reaction to Black Lives Matter, which I'm saying was kids getting beat up in the fucking street. Okay. So as opposed to, like I said, like they didn't yank us out of those church pews, right? That was a quiet response. It was a secret response. This was a very public response of, if you stand up, we will beat the shit out of you.
Yeah, and you also have cops all throughout the protests. On like, I remember the first windows that got fucking broken, and where was that? Minneapolis? Where's the first incident? Yeah, and the fucking guy, I'm sure you remember at the time, they got like the footage of him, so they were able to ascertain who that fucking guy was. He was a fucking cop. It's like, and so I to what extent, who is who and what's what? It's totally us or them, where it's like, which is which and who is who. I have
it's funny because a lot of the Republicans were like, you know, we can't defund the police. Yeah, it's terrible. But then they're starting to recognize, like, wait, aren't the police the ones that are on the drugs that are working? Not all of them, but there's a lot of police that are corrupt, and they're starting to shift to like, oh, well, maybe we can just give it to the sheriffs, let the sheriffs do the. We'll go back to the dark ages.
Totally. I don't give a fuck, dude. I'll tell you. I when I was driving a cab, I'll try and abbreviate this. I open the door to a place. I knock on the door for my fare over by Live Oak. You actually know the area, so I can tell.
Right, which is, as Robert Anton Wilson says, proof of quantum physics is Live Oak, because it's an unincorporated conglomerate, right?
And so I look in this place while I'm waiting for this guy. And it's like an adult frat party. They're just having a party. It's all of these bros. And I see the biggest pile of fucking cocaine I've ever seen in my fucking life, just like on the table in the room. And the guy comes out. He doesn't know I saw what I saw.
Calm down.
He doesn't know I saw what I saw. Whatever. He gets in my cab. We go to a red light. It's nighttime. He goes, "Hey, flick your brights." And it's a little trick because
it works.
Certain stoplights, there's a little box, and it's not all like, you can have cameras at stoplights, but this is not a camera. It's actually meant to read sirens. And so my boss had shown me that before. So I said to the guy, it's like, "What, are you a cop?" And he goes, "Yeah, as a matter of fact, I am." And I go, "Oh, so that was a cop party?" And he's like, "Yep, me and the boys like to get together sometimes, have a good time, whatever." He doesn't know. I'm thinking to myself, "Don't you get fucking tested?" I'm like, they must get a heads up. My boss gave me a heads up if I was going to get tested. You know, it's like, that's just, you know, your boss can do that. You know, so I mean, I'm just like, dude, was that evidence? You guys just fucking, and I'm just thinking to myself, dude, cops are just fucking going around town, fucking pulling people over, just high as fuck on coke.
One of these days, I'm going to write a book on Santa Cruz conspiracies, and it's going to just be called "It All Happened on Laurel Street," and it'll just be all of not in all of Santa Cruz, just Laurel Street, like the pirate radio station, the Antifa communities, the Republicans, the secret police, the regular police station connected to the Stagnaro Locatelli shipping and fisherman house, which were built to each other. And the legend goes that they used to share bottles back and forth between the police and the fishermen underneath the fence, right? I mean,
the other one was it was like 3 a.m. and I was on my porch. My porch was like covered with like I don't know what you call it. It's like almost like bamboo. It's a type of bamboo that's like invasive or whatever. But anyway, I'm completely covered, and I'm sitting there smoking by myself in the middle of the night, totally quiet. And all of a sudden, I hear this guy fucking slapping another guy and talking to him like he's like a little kid, and he's just like talking mad shit. And I hear that the guy is Spanish speaking, who he's slapping. And I'm like, and he says he owes him money. And he's like, "Give me my money." And then I'm sitting there, and then I hear a 10-4, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, what the fuck? Was that a CB? And I get up super slowly. I get freaked out because I'm like, oh shit, fucking police. And I go around, and it's his car door is open, fucking squad car. He's fucking he's slapping this guy. He's not punching him, he's slapping him, telling him the fucking money he owes. And I know for a fact that fucking people sell heroin at the corner right there on River Street. And so I'm like, dude, I mean, I can't tell you because I never heard the H word, but I'm so there's some speculation involved. What isn't speculative? That was a cop slapping a guy, telling him he owed him money. And my question is, does he owe him money because he's letting him fucking use that spot and not popping him for fucking selling heroin on the fucking?
Have you never seen Serpico?
It's Serpico. And not only have I seen Serpico, I've watched a lot of his speeches, actually.
Yeah,
He's an amazing guy.
Hey, have you guys heard of Gary Falker? Have you
familiar.
seen Army of One with Nicolas Cage from 2016?
Yeah, a long time ago, yeah.
So, I mean, this guy really exists. Not this one. Hold on.
You just make a meme of that picture and says this guy really exists.
Based, but kinda. So Gary Falker, right? So this guy goes to Pakistan because God told him, and in the movie, God is played by Russell Brand. God told him he has to find Osama bin Laden. And so this is a true story. He literally went to Pakistan twice. The first time he bought a boat and he like crash landed in Mexico or San Diego. So the second time he actually flew to Israel, and then he took a paraglider in that broke because he cut it apart to put it in through travel. So the third time he just got directly into Pakistan. The CIA are like, who is this guy? And what is he doing here? And he's going to blow our whole investigation of Osama bin Laden. And he eventually says like he finds Osama bin Laden, but he passes out because he doesn't have his dialysis machine, ironically. So he wakes up in a room with Osama bin Laden where they're both on dialysis. I don't know if that's real or not, but that's the thing. And then the CIA let him get away, he says. He's like, you let him get away. And then the CIA take him out of the country. He has to go back home. And when he gets back home, he sees that Osama bin Laden has been discovered that the day after he gets home and has been laid to rest. Now today he's going to be laid to rest at buried at sea. And he's like, this is all a lie. And he started saying there's no way that they did this and that they're doing this just to cover up the fact that I found where they were hiding Osama bin Laden.
Crazy.
So, I don't know what you thought about that, but I know, Alan, you've got the hindsight's 2020. It's a major point of that film that you made is the connection there to Obama finding Obama connection. What do you can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, I have to check out this movie though. What is this called?
It's called Army of One, and
Okay,
it's I forget, but it's one of the writers from Seinfeld made it, and so
Not Larry David.
Not Larry David, buddy of Larry David. What is his name? Let me just go to it. Larry Charles.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
It's also produced by Saturn Films.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Larry Charles very much looks like he loves Saturn. He's like a rabbinical Saturnite. That's the look today. It's a good look.
So yeah. So basically a lot of my if anyone wants to check it out, Hindsight 2020. It's episode 3.
There's the whole documentary is on here on my channel. I'm going to put the link in the description for everybody for after.
Hell yeah, that'd be great. Yeah, link up to that whole video. So it's like, but I kind of made it in 5 episodes. So it would be the 3rd episode is where you're going to get like this specific information. And basically there was a weekend in 2011, May 2011, where there was the royal wedding of Will and Kate, was on, I think, Friday. And then on Saturday, they have this press correspondence dinner where where Obama.
You did it too.
I fucking did it, and that sucks. Where Obama, I'm also high as shit now. So, but Obama says, "Hey, I'm gonna show you a video." This is a whole thing of Donald Trump was saying. You weren't born in Kenya and all this stuff. And so he had showed his birth certificate and people were like, oh, the birth certificate is fake. So he says, okay, you guys are saying my birth certificate's fake. I'm going to show you a video of my live birth. And he shows a video from the Lion King being born. And so I just thought it was interesting. You got birth certificate. You've got this royal wedding. You've got him saying he's the Lion King. And then the next day they announce, hey, we've killed Osama bin Laden. And so you mentioned at the beginning of this, the connection between Arabic and Japanese. Osama in Arabic means lion, and Osama in Japanese means king. So it's literally, you have Obama is announcing himself, I am the Lion King, and now I have killed the Lion King. So there's like a lot of little synchronistic details like that. But basically, it seems to me, I'm going to borrow a term from Jake Kotza, this was a mega ritual. I mean, this was a 3-day event where like there are people out in the street. Like these are big, big rituals. Oh yeah. So this is the other one. The Pope gets resurrected. What do you call they basically take his body out, they dig him up out of the grave to make him a saint. Canonize is the word.
Canonize,
They
right, right.
canonize him, yeah. So, but they literally dig the Pope out of the ground, canonize him, and then put him back in. So the Pope is actually dug up, I think, on Thursday and buried after. So it's literally the Pope's body is above ground the entire time of these like 3 major events, and then the events end and they put him back on the ground. And it really makes me think of, you know, in Rosemary's Baby when they keep saying, oh, this is when the Pope's going to be in town.
Oh,
Right.
Yeah.
You know,
Pope is
it's
gonna
when we
walk
have
Wow.
to but like literally they fucking dig him up, have this crazy weekend where it's like this super mega ritual, and then put him back in the ground. And it's just like, what the fuck was that? What the fuck was that?
Hey, can you just go to the end of that video?
Yeah, I mean,
and just look at the credits. I want to see. Okay, episode 1. This is my video. Do you download this?
Yeah. This is the one. This is your edit. Yeah.
Oh, okay, but it's on. I didn't realize, Andreas, that you would put yours.
oh yeah, I mean, because I was in
But you put on
I
there.
remember that. So the thing, guys, was Alan made this amazing documentary. People were trying to suppress it. I don't know if people's were reptilians were trying to
You
suppress
still
it.
can't watch it on my own channel.
Right.
The 5th episode you cannot watch on my channel.
But I wrote up some crazy legal mumbo jumbo that I've been using a lot of different things, and I've built up my channel enough that I had enough say to be able to get it unblocked. And I was like, all right, like we're gonna make sure that, you know, I checked it out to make sure it was something that I would, you know, want up, and it's an amazing piece. And granted, even on my channel, it has so far less than 1,000 views because it's been so suppressed that people don't want this information out. And it's interesting because it's kind of information that it doesn't matter what you are politically, what side you are. It's just the data and the connections, and it hits equally, I think, on all sides. So I think that's a major reason why they don't want everyone looking at it, because it's just like, hey,
that's the fucking kicker. That's what I
it's just not offensive enough, you know.
Dude,
if it was Alex Jones, they let it ride, you know.
That's the thing, man. They let things go. So the more like ridiculous you are, the more like basically straw man you are. Like the more you exude that straw man that's being projected, the more it seems you're allowed to continue to exist. If you actually like are like, here's how Republicans and Democrats fill in for each other's evils, in like you're not actually like you're just like, here's the blanket of the thing, that's not acceptable. Like, if you talk about like why the Holocaust actually happened, like getting into the details where you like, if you acknowledge the racial aspect, but you go on to anything else, it's like, there is a very specific narrative. And like, Alan, your film is like, you're not taking like a position. It's just so matter of fact. And so like that matter of fact shit does not fucking fly. You need to be polarized if you want, you know, to be acceptable. Yeah.
I also want to pull up some Synchronists really quickly to show Eddie's group. Guys, make sure that you jump in if you're on. I've seen it's actually jumped like 30-40 people at least in the last, you know, it's up to 307.
Oh, just to let you know, I'm being banned for 30 days because I do you want to hear how I got banned?
What did you do? What did you do, Eddie?
No. 2 nights ago, there was a news article saying, you know, the 9/11, you know, the World Trade Center, the guy, the falling man,
right?
The upside down guy who, you know,
the hanging man, the tarot card.
Yeah.
Let's do it. I'll pull it up really quickly.
Yeah, Arcana 12, right? So, and well, actually, the post is still there if you can look it up.
I will. I'm just gonna really quickly show people so they know what they're talking about. So there's this great photo from 9/11. I don't know if "great's" the word, but it's an amazing photo. It's an incredible photo, incredible in an incredulous way. Here's a man who's falling in the perfect hanging man tarot card position, and that was one of the first things that we saw when we said, "Hey, September 11th is happening." The hanged man. That was the kind of intro photo, like to capture the mood of the moment. But I'll go back to the group and let's go down and see.
Just scroll down, you should see it because nobody else is posting anything but me. So,
here it is right here.
So this is what I posted, this and the article, and immediately they just said you try to drive people to a suicide.
What are you? You have to fight it. You have to take it to the Cambridge Analytics Appeal Court, whatever it is.
Appeals court, is that how difficult it is? Oh my god,
I do it every time. And so I sometimes I got 7 days for saying Americans are savages. You know, they were like, so
Okay, you got to give me information on how to fight this, but this is all I posted. I just said, what happened is that what's the call the GameStop, right? The GameStop, they've been manipulating the stocks and the crypto, right? So basically they made the Hangman, the Falling Man, into an NFT.
and so you show the NFT.
Yeah. So on the left is the NFT.
So is he like the 2001 astronaut?
Yeah. Look at that.
I have no idea where the graphic.
Well, look at the caption. Look at the
cool.
caption. It says this one fell from the Mir station. So this brings us back to like
Wow.
the Cold War international.
Probably.
Wow. And fell to earth. Man, it fell to earth. Fallen. Lucifer, things like that. But yeah, it's definitely kind of interesting. The kinds of things you can get blocked for. If you go on Twitter, you can post transgender pornography. You just can't critique it. So it's an interesting alternative is just to be on Twitter. I think that's a place that's relatively, you can get away with a lot. So we'll be posting more of this stuff, and hopefully you'll be posting some more of this stuff on Synchronis. I also want to go to the Sync book really quickly. You guys need to know, every time I do this, I'm sorry, it's the Sync book. And it's a beautiful website. It's one of my favorite aesthetics. I think it's just such a great look. Who did this picture again?
So the illustration, the like illustrated magician part, is done by a guy named Aubrey Beardsley. He's
beautiful.
He's a fantastic artist from, I don't know, like the late 1800s. And then the wheel behind it, Justin Morgan had made like 26 of these different wheels for the original Sync book. Each one
is that 22 points on that one?
I'm pretty sure I picked a 17 for the logo.
Oh,
because that's
nice.
You
like
would.
thing. Yeah,
0
exactly.
and 17.
So so I basically took these, like this wheel that Justin made, this illustration this other guy made, and just kind of made it into a. And then this, this meme came out like last year. Do you guys aware of the Ponder the Orb meme?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
exactly.
if you scroll all the way down, I put something on the website recently. This is just funny to me.
Is it at the very base or
very, very base? Yeah. There you go. Pondering the orb.
Wow. Not bad. Sync book's one of my favorite. The Sync book, not the Sync book, the Sync book, one of my favorite sites in the world. You've got so many great things here. Hopefully someday we'll see Synctank could be one of the podcasts here. But there's also Always Record, and it's got just hundreds of amazing episodes that are standing the test of time. I also recommend the literature, and if you go to videos, you can find your way to the documentary itself if you couldn't find it on the link description below to my channel. But go ahead and click here to give them some views. But if you want, get through me. And then Syncflix, David played Syncflix, all of the craziest movie synchronicities in the world. I don't think I can push this any harder. Now that's what I call synchronicity. That's kind of how I feel. This is my mecca. So David, thank you for making all these videos, by the way. Do you have a recommendation for people?
Things maybe recent ones I'm really pleased with. There's been larger gaps between what I actually put out. So like my hard drive has so many videos that I've been doing in the last couple of years, but I kind of just been giving more like what is I consider really, really special stuff to like put out,
Jackie's Strength definitely is on the charts. Someone needs to watch that one.
Yeah.
Oh, how about Everything's Connected 9/11?
My favorite of all of them is Bitter Moon with Lana Del Rey's Honeymoon. That's like my favorite sync at this point. And I have a lot, but that's up there.
Boom. Guys, check out Bitter Moon and connect to the Synchronis. And then Alan, anything you wanna add to this? Places they can find you or Truth?
I would love it if people would check out little-ghost.com. I'm doing a Kickstarter in October for this tarot deck and for this video game I've been working on. And, I'd love if anyone gave that any support. Would be absolutely awesome. That's what I'm working on. What I'm trying to work on these days. So
this is the game you're working on. This looks amazing. Oh, this is gonna be great.
This game kicks ass. Yeah.
Oh, I'm gonna be one of your first buyers. Let me know when I can get this. I will start I'll review it. We'll Twitch it. This is based. Oh, this is gonna be wonderful.
You do Twitch? Yeah. I've had like a bunch of people play this on there. So
Nice.
I have a free demo that's people can play right now. I literally basically what I did is I made the first like 2-3 hours of the game, made that totally free, and then I'm trying to do a Kickstarter to say, hey, if you like this, I will make like 8 more hours of this.
Wow, this looks amazing. So everybody, thank you so much for being here on Synctank. I hope that we can do it again next week. You guys are my favorite people. Thanks so much for being here. You guys are the best.
Thanks for having me, man.
Thank you.
Supplementally, I should really quickly say to the audience, because it's still live, thank you for the super chats, which I did not read, but Travis, the yeet was appreciated. I hope you had a great date with your grandmother. Stephen, the panopticon is real and we will be studying it more. And then, oh, Canada, I really appreciate that we got a 20 Canadian dollar donation from Matt Deemers. Drinks on me, guys. So thank you very much. We appreciate that. All right, well, we'll see you next week.